Thank you. 6:15.
Can I just ask somebody if they've got a spare pen I could borrow, please, because I've left mine at home.
Got pens?
Yeah, that's it, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, very much appreciated. Welcome everybody to the meeting. Shouldn't really say this to Scrutiny, but I think you'll be quite relaxed this evening. I've got a number of apologies. So let's kick off and then we'll get... by the way, thank you, Councillor Wesley, for coming along. Always good to see you here.
I just had a bit early, Chair.
Thank you, and also thank you for chairing and seeing the meeting last time and the arrangements of that. Sorry, I don't like to miss them normally, but it was pretty very good. Right, so first of all, aside the minutes of their last meeting, which I wasn't here for, obviously, so I have no idea if this is true. But have you anybody any comments on it? Was it a true and accurate reflection?
It is a true and accurate reflection.
I'll second that.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Means I can sign it. I wanted to point one thing out. We've got the post-year implementation, so they've all come through now, so thank you for that. Tony and I were getting a bit excited about them towards the end of the season, that we hadn't really rattled through them, so thank you for getting that completed as well, which appreciate it. And you'll note this evening that we have generally looking after us. We do actually have a new committee secretary.
Yes.
Which is Philippa Page. And Philippa started she was here before actually, wasn't she? I believe, Tony, a few years ago.
Yes, she was in a different role a number of years ago, but yeah, she's been...
Maybe you might even know her before, I don't know. Perhaps
PAGE or PF?
So Philippa sends her apologies, obviously, as our Secretary and General is looking after us this time. And then we'll start properly with Philippa at the next meeting. Okay. So, we've done the minutes. Number 2, apologies for absence. I wanted to mention Philippa, I know we don't record it as such, but we've had an apology from Councillor Micklewright. So he had family issues, he couldn't attend. Councillor Paul said he can't attend this evening. I thanked him, so we'll miss it. And we also had apologies from Councillor Ritchie, who said he'd like to come to more Scrutiny meetings. I hope he enjoyed the last one, and he couldn't make it either. So, we should hopefully be able to move through it at a reasonable pace. The next item on the agenda is declarations of members' interests. Shouldn't have any today, but if we have, let me know. Next one is corporate strategic plan, which is Julie's spot. And as always, we'll take the same approach. I think it works, which is Julie will talk to us particularly about exceptional items, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss those and probe those in more detail. We haven't got any members of the public this evening, or any members of the gallery, as it were, but please do ask questions. Right, over to you, Julie. Thank you very much for coming in.
Well, I normally, through you, Chair, only talk about the Reds, so it could be really quick tonight.
Could be, actually.
Because there aren't any.
That's very good.
Well, next item. Just to explain, we are in the start of a new 2017-2020 corporate plan.
So it's a new plan, and it's the first quarter of the new plan.
Yeah. So what I'm reporting on is June, and so it's always, just important to remember that, because we're now in September, but it's just the way the cycles fall. Yeah. So what we're reporting on is what was happening or what had happened at the end of June. So, the first 2 measures there are happily green. Also, bear in mind that it is a new plan. We've reset targets, we've reset profiles, and a lot of the things kind of move forward throughout the year. So they're quite low, zeros or targets early on, because they take a lot of preparation and a lot of work to move forward to.
And of course, Julie, one of the accusations you normally get at this point is that you change the targets to make them easier to achieve.
Yeah, I would actually say, as you'll see, we have got a couple of ambers and I'll talk about them, but I think that, when we set it, the targets were very much what I would say realistic, and there are some challenging targets in there. And I've already just looked at the start of quarter 2, and for instance, just on this B1 here, because that target came in from July, actually, that's already quite an ambitious target. So I will say that there is lots of ambition and lots of, ambition with some realism in there. So certainly, I wouldn't say in any way have they been set to make sure we achieve more, but they're what we believe is realistic.
And what does the the lime colour, is that simply your colour for the year?
Sorry, which line?
The kind of limeish colour on row 4?
Row 4.
Yeah, the actual headers.
Yeah, that's just the year that we're
Just
in.
the year colour,
Yeah, because we've compared with previous years, so 16, 17. Although this is the start of a new year, so a new 3-year cycle, some of them we had last year. So if they were the same, very similar measures to the last 3 years, we've kept the figures in there because it gives you an idea of how we were performing last year. You'll see as we'll go through that some of them, obviously, we didn't have that measure in the last 3 years, so there's nothing to compare to. But what you've always asked me in the past is, well, how do we compare to last year?
Keep tracking over a
It's
period
a 3-year cycle, so I've included last year to give you a feel for kind of what happened.
Good, and then, so this period will go from, because we like a bit of long-term tracking on these goals actually, historically.
Yeah, so this will, if I go on to the next one, on to B2, this one will, if I just shoot it over there, you'll see, we've actually shown, this will eventually go up to 2020, but at the minute we've only set targets in for this year.
Good, okay, thank you. Maybe as we have got probably a little bit of time as early adverts, perhaps it would be worth quickly running through them anyway to quickly familiarise us with them.
Yeah.
And members can stop and ask any quick questions if you wish to.
Well, they're just going back, the last two there are ones we have had for quite some time, so I'll not dwell on those. Number of interventions made to develop tourism in the district, so you'll see the fact that there's nothing here. This is a new one, and this is it belongs in my business team, where we're actually looking at how we can develop tourism and how we can measure that. And we've already had 2 quite big shows where we did the quick boat show. So we're showing there, right? How can we promote tourism? What can we do? And that one's already.
So it's not showing that we've had 8 what you call interventions.
Yeah.
So aren't these more planned than that? I'm surprised that there's so many more than you planned for. These things like the Women's Depart is planned months, years in ahead, and Crick Boat Show is annual.
They're not random, are they?
Yeah.
They stumble upon
It
another.
appears to have 5 things have turned up.
Yeah, the difference is while the Crick Boat Show's annual, us having a stand there and actively promoting things hasn't always been annual. And it was a bit like, we knew the women's tour was there, but we have actively really, gone out of a way to promote that. So, yes, they are planned, but I think we've had a few more in quite early on than we actually anticipated.
Okay.
When she had the original figure of 10, that's what we realistically thought we would do all year. And at that point, the Crick Boat Show and Broadstone Historic Boat Rally, I don't think we were intending to go to. So things change.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Briscoe, question.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what this is really. What is an intervention for tourism? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, for me, for instance, going to the Crick Boat Show doesn't necessarily mean that that's for me an intervention in attracting people to Daventry as a tourist destination. I'm not criticising. I'm just trying to understand how that would be an intervention.
It's when we've proactively done something to promote tourism and what's been going on in our district. So, for instance, at that one, and I was there personally doing it, so I know all about it. We had our own stand with Love Daventry, talking about the canal arm, talking about the things we were doing. So it was a very proactive promotion.
Yeah.
So that, when we're talking about intervention, what have we proactively done?
So that's the definition of intervention.
I would actually say it's the wrong word. Intervention means you do something to cure something or to stop something. It's actually just an action.
Sorry, if I can just say at this point, the
Everyone
plan
agreed.
is agreed.
No.
Everybody has a say in it. They all have comments. It goes through the various council processes. They were the words agreed. So the words are there, and that's what was agreed and finalised.
That's fair enough. 1 minute, Casper.
Actually, my point's already been raised by Councillor Wesley, but I would just question what we're achieving by attending these events which are already in our district. So if we want to promote tourism in the district, then it would be better to be promoting ourselves outside the district to get people coming in. I mean, I understand that there will be visitors from outside on occasions who may be encouraged to visit other sites within the district, but I just question how much can actually be achieved by this kind of intervention.
Is it the case that whilst actually we may be at places in the district, people at the events may not be people in the district? So you're still capturing that perspective?
Potentially.
Not without putting words in your mouth. About
Sorry, to add to that, I was at the Creek Boat Show, and probably I would say probably 95% were actually people, it's who you want to get to, and they weren't people from within the district, narrowboat owners, etc. But we were very much trying to promote all the good that we were trying to do. So that was the absolute ideal audience to do it to.
Can I come back to you a second? Councillor Lucy?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, Councillor Richard.
I understand the pretext, but it's not measurable, is it? The low figures in terms of, it's about reach, it's about those outside the district, and it's tourism, it's about numbers. And that's the sample that you want from canvassing people when you're out there and around and about. Otherwise, we're talking about cumulative single figures that by the end of the quarter, target 10. I understand what you're doing, but I don't understand, it's not actually measurable other than single digit figures in terms of reach.
Yeah, I think the interesting challenge you've got here is that was agreed already.
I understand that.
Yeah. Let me come to Tony a second. Then come back to Councillor. Tony.
Oh, okay. I think in part, to pick up on Councillor Pritchard's point, the drive behind this largely came from work of this committee, where it was
actually because a lot of it started.
The committee, and one of the actions out of that was developing a tourism forum, and it's about trying to understand what the tourist attractions are, the tourist businesses, how we can facilitate growth in tourism in the district. In terms of what we're doing with these interventions, actions, whatever we call them, is using an event that's already there as an opportunity to promote the wider tourism attractions or tourism industry within the district. So that's just really trying to give it some context. Just a general point on targets, particularly targets for new indicators. We're on a bit of uncertain ground. It's new territory for us, and we tend to be cautious, I think, when we introduce a new target. So it's not surprising to me that we've seen a huge, significant actions above the target in the first quarter. We've seen the opportunities to promote, and we've taken those opportunities.
Thank you, Tony. Before I come to you, actually, is it maybe to pick up on Councillor Pritchard's point, they can be more quantitative in terms of, not the actual targets written down, but in terms of the description about them. So actually, you could say how many visitors might have attended, etc., where we were located, that kind of give more context. That might be one thing to consider perhaps in the write-up about it. So you actually a bit more description than how many people there was.
Sorry, just to come back to that, one of the things we stress is that the targets have to be measurable. We couldn't have said to you this many people turned up, this many people visited our stand, this many people went away. What is measurable? What is measurable is that we were there and we did this presentation. And that's, I say all along, there's lots and lots of things we kind of like to know or measure, but can we do it and how realistic it is? And to add to what Tony said as well, just on both of these measures, if you may recall, we have a new person in post doing this role. So, the fact that it's taken her a bit of time to find her feet, to establish these targets, it's a brand new role, brand new job. It will take a little bit of time to establish.
And this is Councillor Howard's area, isn't it? Of course, communications, such as falls in
Look Daventry.
Yeah. Is that correct?
Well, it is in part. I mean, a lot of these are sort of cross-cutting issues, but it's economic development arguably is
But in terms of the activity of communication, that will fall. Who's responsible for the targets? Is there a single portfolio responsible? It tells you on the column on the side, doesn't it? Yeah. Normally.
Actually, I believe it's Councillor Paul.
Councillor Paul, this one.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, he drove, what we did, and that's where it was set. He wouldn't actually set the targets. The targets would be set by, this belongs to the business manager, Simon Bowers, and he would agree the targets with his team, as to what our plan is for the year.
Yeah. Portfolio orders have an input.
Oh, yeah, yes, certainly.
Yeah. By definition from previous meetings.
Yeah, the targets are agreed by portfolio holders.
Okay, Councillor Pritchard.
How many of these interventions are outside of the county, district, sorry?
What of these that she's listed here?
Or
These
any of
The
areas?
ones that have been delivered today.
Because I mean, there are tourist forums outside the district that we should be going to, you know, trade shows, that sort of thing. They strike me as areas where we should be trying to push the Daventry agenda for tourism.
I can't comment on what she's got planned for the rest of the year because I look at what we've already completed on. At this point in time, I'd have to go back and ask her for a full list. I
Can we
encourage
find
them.
out?
Certainly, I mean, she'll have the information, but I encourage them not to put every single thing in the comments because it makes it too lengthy.
So I'm interested in what we're doing out of the district.
Yeah.
Because I think that is actually probably more relevant than what we do in the district.
Yeah.
It follows on from
Okay,
points made earlier.
Tony, could you come back to us that information after the meeting, please? Just the split, or Julie, or sorry, through the system.
I'll happily do it. She sits next to me in the office.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Not
much.
a problem.
Yeah.
What that does give us, though, as always with this, it might give us food for thought about who we might invite in the future. And it could be actually we'll keep a close eye on this one. Once you've seen it in a couple of months' time, perhaps call in Councillor Paul and discuss his strategy with him in terms of outreach out of the district. I think that would probably be a very logical place to go. Anybody, we do welcome that one, I think. Anyway, it's useful to see.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's got us thinking about a few things. Anybody got any further questions? Because it's good to look at it as it's unfamiliar to us. Jude, take us to the next one, please.
The next
Particularly
one,
those that we're not familiar
rural
with.
transport and economic strategy. This is it's a new one into the corporate plan this year, but obviously the strategy was written in 2015. So the strategy is not new. It's just that we haven't included it into the corporate plan before. So, and again, this is about, with again that post I've referred to, what can we do to try and help, the economic strategy and rural transport. And it lists there the kind of 9 target actions of the strategy and 5 that we've already achieved to date.
So talk us through it. So basically there were 9 targets,
Yeah.
of which you achieved 5 already.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us which ones you've achieved so
Just
far?
trying to make them a bit bigger for you.
It's all right, we're sat near it.
All right, so you can all see that, can you?
I think it's coming quite handy. I mean, my neck's aching already, but you certainly get a bit of view here.
So there's 1 to 9 there, do you know which
Yeah, which ones have we achieved
Do
already?
you know what? That's a good question because they haven't said, have they? They've just listed the 1 to 9, and
Yeah.
no one else.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know off the top of your head, Tony, do you?
I
But I don't. I'd have to go back and.
So we could just, obviously if you say 1, 3,
Yeah.
7...
Well, actually, it does. If you go through a commission outline design of Daventry to Broadston cycle track, it's saying work has been undertaken. So it's-
Historical, yeah.
So yeah, it's telling you the right next one. Employ 0.5 strategic economic development officer. That actually did happen, and this was the very post I was referring to. Started in November.
Could you make it even more obvious for us? I mean, I know it's obvious.
Well, I can suggest to them that they only list
They could just...
the achieved. But that's a bit like going back to your previous point.
No, what's the
On
order?
number 2.1, you want to know the list for the whole year, and we can't show all of that on everything.
Do you do a very simple colour coding system? Just
Yeah. I'll
take the text
suggest
green for those that
yeah.
have achieved. Simple as that. Or
Yeah.
red for those that
Yeah.
haven't achieved.
Yeah, and it says, number 3, publicise updates about public and community transport is ongoing. Work with partners to assist tourism, and again, it's talking about using Love Daventry platform to advertise, women's cycle tour, etc.
So when we say, this is an interesting one actually, because when we say this has been achieved, looking at the trajectory of some of these, you've got 5 out of 9 already, and we've got 7 by the end of the year. That by definition means we'll achieve 2 in the next couple of years, if not the next year. What will be left on this one for the subsequent years? Anything in particular? We'll revisit it, etc.
Q3, Q4's not, I can't.
Q4's moved off.
Oh, it's just off
sorry.
the good point actually. I've kind of, yeah. Oh, it's 9. So
Yeah.
according to this, we've achieved 1
Yeah.
over the year.
The aim is to achieve all the 9, but then the strategy's there for 2020, their actual actions may change, that they have different actions. These are the target actions for where we're at the minute, so they may come up with new target actions for next year. Bearing in mind these are reset at the end of each year. It won't say, we'll have 9 Q1 next year for these same 9 that we've already achieved, because that's not telling us anything.
I actually like this though. I mean, apart from the colour code on the targets that have been there, it feels like a bit of detail, doesn't it? And you can really relate to it and say, yeah, see where we are with that. And actually, when you compare the 2 years, you'd like to see. So, for instance,
if you actually, if you go through number 7, it actually quite states work is continuing. Number 8 says not yet commenced. So you can pick out. It does quite clearly tell you in the text actually, but you've got to read all 9.
So the 5 will be completed ones. So so point 7 you just mentioned wouldn't be there yet because it's ongoing.
It says it's ongoing.
So it's not until it's complete that it becomes a figure on there.
Yeah, a figure. And you'll see as you read them. I mean, it's obviously you are sent this before, and it's easier if you've perhaps got it in front of you to read. But I can go through every word if you want, but it does tell you there if you go through which are achieved, where they're at, which are ongoing, the word that it's taken. But I can happily colour coordinate it and have them in nice bright colours so it shows ones that are achieved.
Yeah, I mean, not kind of bomb-inducing colours, but sort of.
I was thinking maybe pink and orange.
Yeah, just green and red, or just green if it's been done.
Got a highlight.
Yeah, guess what?
Just picking up on point number 6, and I possibly should declare my interest as a dual platter county councillor as well. It's just that our aim is to contribute to NCC's total transport project, and that the county council hasn't engaged with PDC on this. Is it possible to have more detail on what we're aiming to contribute? Is that we're aiming to contribute funds? We're aiming to contribute in terms of
Eventual contribution,
planning or whatever else? And in terms of NCC not engaging with us, have we just been met with silence, or have they indicated a lack of willingness to accept assistance from us? Just more clarity about exactly what we're trying to achieve and the precise nature of the response from the county would be helpful.
Do you have that to hand? Should we continue to come
Not
back
to
on
hand, I'd have to go back and ask questions.
I didn't expect you to.
I think you've actually come back with a package of answers to it.
Yeah, on those ones.
Yes, please.
They're new and it's not my area of grapes.
You're testing our reading abilities here. I see number 5's got these with 2 E's, but that's not that's immaterial. But
sorry, which one's got 2 E's?
item number 5.
Was it on the previous one? I've just seen a spelling mistake as well.
You moved us over on it.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was.
It's okay. So you've got an action on that one. Does anybody have any further questions on that one? Councillor French, particularly not you, no further questions?
Not at the moment, because I've not seen this before, because normally we're sent it.
We are normally sent a copy actually, yeah.
I wasn't there this afternoon.
I didn't see it.
No, it went out about a month ago. Fiona's now sending them out with other. It went out to all councillors about a month ago.
Oh, right.
Ah, yeah, sorry, good point. That's actually it was so long ago, you've forgotten you had it.
Wow.
One of our actions is that you asked me to send it to all councillors, so
Yes,
we've now
you do.
coordinated
You do
how we
actually.
do that.
I
Fiona sends
read
it,
that,
but it's-
sorry, I apologise. I didn't realise that was this. I thought that was the previous one.
It was this one, wasn't it? I'll have to go back and look, but I remember.
I thought
remember
it was the
seeing it.
previous.
We probably need to refresh our. In a way, I know it was our decision to do this way, but I still don't feel like I can come to terms with it being this way completely. I kind of miss it in the pack actually. But are we happy to have it this way on the screen still?
Yes. I think it's a waste of time and money and resources to do it.
Ironically, Jev and I did have this conversation half an hour ago when she said the screen's not working, are you going to print them all out? And I said it's 18 pages long of A3 full colour, which is why we went to
It's a
this
resource
in the
issue.
first place.
And
So,
of course, you haven't got people here who've got a copy, etc. So
You took about £10 or £20 worth of copying costs.
we're doing our
And
best.
that was and the fact to say we did coordinate so that when Fiona sends all papers out now, I said to her, rather than me doing an additional email, just include it in so it went with the pack.
You know, on the CMS documents, that we get that email that says they're available.
Yeah.
Is it CMIS?
Yeah.
This
The link
wasn't
to
on
follow.
it. So there should have been a link on
There is,
the...
yeah, there is now.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
right,
on the
okay.
bottom, but it's on the bottom. It doesn't follow the agenda, it's right at the bottom, so.
That's
as long
not
as
really
we're on the
nice,
work
isn't it?
programme.
Yeah, if you go to there and pick up stuff,
Yeah.
actually, no point. If you have it all in the same place, that's helpful for you. Good. And then even if it's a member who hasn't got the papers, they can pick it up.
Yeah.
All right, well that's all. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next one.
These two are existing from, with previous years, so that there's nothing new here. We've preset the targets, all running green at the minute.
In my experience, these always get more interesting as you go through them.
Well, yeah, and that was my point
Yeah.
about a lot of them will get more interesting as we go through the year.
But can you tell, do any of these actually, I know you're not here to give us like news flashes, but do any of them look like they're going off track so far?
Not at this point in time.
So that the amber is the closest to any risks that you have.
Yeah. I've got one that we'll talk about in a minute that's
Cassie?
So the reason why there's no distinction between primary and secondary school places and their targets, because it would make sense, in my mind at least, to have separate targets for primary and secondary school places.
again, I would just say these were the measures that were agreed through the process, and that's what was wanted. I think it's also how much can we measure, how much information can we get in, and that was the agreed.
So of course UTC was one of those that was on there for several years, of course. And that was endless hours we discussed that one, of course. We had our vision. But is it possible to go back and get it more detailed so it can be spoken to people too?
Not at this point in time, because not in terms of the measure and the
Not in terms
targets
of measure,
and
but
the.
just in terms of a bit more description on there.
It says actually in there, if you read the description, they're all secondary, apart from 300 spaces for Monksmoor.
So that gives you the simple.
Yeah, but those are the raw numbers in terms of the number of places delivered.
But it's
the
just
target
target.
itself doesn't make a distinction on it. Maybe that we end up with lots of surplus secondary school places and people not able to actually find primary school places.
It's got to be the right
I
numbers.
misunderstood what you said.
See, it's both of those actually. Yeah.
Chair, can I just ask, just an observation, just thinking about it. I mean, to me, the number of school places, it's really interesting to see what we've actually got there, but it's actually within our power.
That was all the conversations we always used to say about
We're building Monksmoor.
What's in our power, what's we can
Yeah,
influence.
because although it's a target, it's interesting. I just wonder what is actually in our power as such, and it's like sometimes I know we're quite keen on it, and quite rightly so in my view, and but I'm just sort of debating the fact, and I'm just sort of flagging up here in my own mind that maybe we've been remiss as councillors in not actually scrutinising these things as they come through council, because I think there's been a couple of times we've perhaps just thought, oh yeah, that seems like a good idea, but without actually thinking about it. Maybe this committee should be more in the driving
Scrutinise the target.
Yeah, well, scrutinising. Yeah, actually putting the targets in place to scrutinise, if you see what I mean.
Well, I don't think it'd be our role to put them in place.
No, not the actual target. Sorry, the profile of the targets, not the actual numbers and about what we're trying to do, but perhaps more of a logical thought process. Because I do think, as a council, it's all too easy just to read something on a paper and think, oh, that seems like a good idea, and go yes. And I think there maybe have been a couple up here that possibly we've let slip past us, and that's not an officer's problem. That's accounts. That's absolutely.
Well, some of them are also new as well. That's perhaps why,
Yeah.
because this is the first time we've seen some of them actually like
Yeah,
this.
so can I just
Yeah.
say that when we put this together, it just goes through a lengthy consultation process that involves residents, councillors, portfolio holders, chief execs, the works, to get to this stage. And all that feedback and everything has gone into this point. This particular one of a lot of the comments we had, I think particularly from this committee for quite some time, was why weren't we measuring the number of places filled? And that is exactly the point. We can't influence that. So the measure reflects what we can influence, and we can influence the number of school college places delivered, which is why that's measures there. So I think in answer to, it's all gone through that process, and there were, when we first started out, there were lots and lots of, we should have this in as a measure, we should have that in a measure. If it's not in our control, or we can't influence it, it hasn't gone in here.
I think my only concern, Judy, is actually, I don't have the issue about the consultation process, it's simply the amount of information on the screen. in the box. So if there's a little bit more information that goes to a little bit more detail, yeah, it actually saves some of the questions about not understanding the detail. Because then we're looking at it and go, yeah, we understand how it works and what the target is. Because don't forget, you'll be looking at these targets in a couple of years into the cycle as well, and all that almost memory is gone. So if you have it on the screen, very simple, have a look at the target for what it is, you can qualify why it's where it is. We can take a view on what we want to do about it as a committee. So if we have a little bit more information, that'll be helpful. Thank you.
Just following on from that indicator, I defer to Councillor Brown. Was it about the same measure?
Yes.
School place, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor.
Just for clarity, Chairman, when did the corporate strategic plan come before council?
Could you answer that question? What's the exact date?
February, I believe.
February of this year, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did. There was a workshop on this as well.
Yes. Yeah. It goes through the actual consultation process started last September, October, and we put thoughts together. We get staff involved, officers involved, portfolio holders, members. It goes through quite a lengthy consultation process before we get back to agreeing, where we'll be. But I think off the top of my head, you might remember, Tony, but I think it was February because it has to be time-led to start live in April. So off the top of my head, it was around that time.
Like I said, I don't really have any concerns about the way we've reached those. I mean, for us, some of these are the first time we've seen this committee. So it's partly familiarisation. We'll really help the process along by keeping it very clear, as descriptive as possible. Any further questions on that one, other than please can you add some clarity around the actual targets?
If I just go back to adding your point about the description,
yeah.
I can put more in, but then if you want to go through every word of it in this setting, there's something like 32 targets, it's going to take a long time. So I tried to get a balance of actually, let's give a summary rather than going into all that detail.
Well, I'm sure like a paragraph on that would be a help, because they're numbers, it's not how you arrive at the numbers, it's the number. But actually, the thing is, there's a whole lot of box there. We've been sat here for a few minutes looking at the screen. Councillors can look at it anyway, and in worst case, you can say, it's on the screen, read it. At least it's in there, so we don't have to keep going through it each time. And that's why I think the one about the previous one, we had 9 targets, works quite well. Because you could actually just say it's there, you just need to change some comments, and we'll see where we go. I suppose, I shouldn't probably put it this way, but I guess the way when you put these together, they're very welcome, but if we can have the information that makes it even easier for us to quickly get through it, then that's fine. Then we can actually focus on the performance drift, if there is one, rather than detail. Okay with that? Thank you. Let's move on to the next one.
Sorry, I just wanted to speak about...
Yeah, sorry, you had one. I do apologise.
That's fine. So I suppose I'll start with a question. How many employees has DDC got?
Well, about 200, just over 200 full-time equivalents, I believe.
It's just the apprenticeship numbers. We've really got 3. Is that ever going to change? We should give young people, the opportunity to develop their skills. Because we've only got 3 apprentices for quite a sizable organisation. Is there any scope to increase that?
Yeah, sorry for you, Chairman. We look for opportunities to do that, and we're not capping that at 3. So if there are opportunities within teams to do that, then we'll go ahead.
And you're looking to put 15 in?
It's all together with work placements, trainee posts.
Yeah,
we can see there's only 3 apprentices.
15 in total, yeah. So you're saying that's too low a number, basically?
I don't think it's a lot, 3 apprentices per annum. I suppose they start in this semester because it's attached to an education provider, do they?
No, not necessarily. I just take one on that started in March, April time. It varies. It's not linked with semesters at all.
So not undergoing education.
I think what tends to happen is like I've had 3 now, but they've all been on 2-year cycles.
Yeah.
So although it doesn't look a lot, if they're doing a level 2 and a level 3 MVQ, you've got them for 2 years. So that kind of, it's very different to having one every week, and we are very successful in how many apprentices we have that go into, I can quote 2, I know Tony can quote 1, 3 of our previous apprentices have now become full-time employees of the council, which I think is fantastic.
It is fantastic, that employability level is great. I just wonder if there's any capacity to have any more than 3, that was all.
Well, one thing actually, one way to look at this is, when will the targets be set for 2018-19?
Towards the end of probably February time.
Right, and how can we make a contribution to that? So how will you go about setting that target, for instance?
The target's set through, I mean, Tony's team owns this target, so they will set, it's a combination of, they'll look at what we've done over the last 3 years, they'll look at, there's also a question of finance, because we still pay for the apprentices, even though, but we still do have to pay for them, so it also depends on budget and things, so they'll take all those things into consideration.
And when will just remind us here, when will the 2018-19 targets be approved? Do we actually approve those as the early time?
They'll be approved by portfolio holders, so I think the opportunity is for this group to lobby the relevant portfolio holder.
Okay.
We try to get them approved before the start of the new year. Some of them, that they need the figures from the end of the previous year, depending on what they, before they can actually set the next year. It depends on the target.
So is it I'll come to this. Is it possible for us to see a draft set of performance targets as they're in that train of discussion with the portfolio owners and give our view on it? So that's something we could do too. I don't think we've done that before actually. That kind of answers perhaps some of the concerns about it. Or at least make a contribution to draft performance targets.
I think it's something this committee could do is to make some contribution to that. We need to look at the timing in terms of the cycles of this meeting and when decisions are made.
Because we could look at that in a February meeting perhaps? Would that be a time, or a November meeting?
November may be better. I think February, we'd be looking to sign off on targets in February-March 18 for the year 2018-19.
Because they soon come upon us, don't they? So we'll come back to that in a second, but Councillor Brown first.
Just to clarify, does this fall within Councillor Griffin's
So HR does actually for Councillor Griffiths as deputy leader.
HR is part of Councillor Griffin's remit. I'm not sure who this is assigned to on the plan, Julie, which portfolio?
It says access and communication.
So Councillor Howard.
We might need to.
I think we might need to I've just picked that up. But
it was a bit peculiar, perhaps it was a bit peculiar on the first one we looked at as well.
Yeah, I might need to just revisit that.
I think it's probably a rather obvious question I'm looking to have answered, but in terms of the setting of targets for the next year within the cycle, what are your views on us making a contribution, if that can be done within a time limit? Or at least see what the draft was.
Definitely.
So that's kind of the missing bit. Actually, I think it's more apparent now with the way this is set out than before. So Tony, could you go and have a look at that, please? And we can discuss it. And if we can, there's some way. I mean, because I appreciate if we meet in November, then you have to get this populated with draft figures for next year already, and that brings the cycle forward quite a lot. And it probably even means that, I don't know, what is it like, in 4 weeks, 6 weeks from now, you can start to look at some figures for next year. But if we could look at the reality of that cycle at the crowd for okay, good. I'll make a note for the next agenda. So, okay, so thank you for that. Because unless my memory is not quite right, haven't we seen the targets plotted for the next year? Further in advance than we are now?
Last year, when we did the previous 3 years, we did try to put the following ones in place.
We did, didn't we? That's perhaps where
but we haven't, at this point, particularly where there's new ones and there's so many things changing.
So, what is it about?
Sorry, I think actually it was more the fact that when we started doing the 3-year format, we'd already had the previous 2 years, so it looked as though you got 3 years in, 3 years together.
That might be what it is, because I don't think we've had this conversation before about looking forward, and I'm kind of wondering why we haven't done that. Perhaps that's why, because we haven't seen it before. But if we're not on there, we're going to get to them quite late. There's a problem.
There's it's actually a related point. Just, no, we can't influence the targets now because they've already been set, but it would seem to me that on the issue of raising the profile of Daventry districts and the number of items across professional media coverage that Ricky has said, we sort of mostly underestimated coverage of the women's tour, and it's no bad thing to have more positive coverage than we anticipated. But I think when it ends up being 4 times the expected level of coverage, it means that either we've had a fundamental lack of understanding of what we've been dealing with and the publicity that we surround it, then that, I think, inevitably would lead to, should we say, a lack of urgency throughout the rest of the year, because we're now only 4 pieces of positive media coverage away from meeting our year's target at the end of Q1. So just items like that, I think we do need to be more aware of certain issues when we're doing our target setting.
Target set, absolutely. Yeah. The interesting thing is, a bit later in the agenda, we have got, for instance, that we're going to get Councillor Gelfling, but we could actually switch it and say we'd rather see perhaps Councillor Howard talking about this. So we can get to that a bit later in the agenda, but in the meantime, I totally agree with that point, and we'll ask...
Chairman, I could just come back on that point. A fair comment, but the situation with the women's tour, at the time the targets were set, we hadn't been awarded the women's tour. So that did come as a bonus.
That's fair enough.
That's a good logical justification.
But I think please be assured that we won't be sitting on our laurels and thinking we can coast the rest of the year.
He'll be watching.
Well, as a manager responsible, I'll be watching.
Okay,
I
so
was just going to say exactly that, but knowing Tony's team as they are and knowing how much we've got going on with other things, rest assured there's a lot going on.
excellent. So we've got an action for Tony there to come away and think about the scrutiny of the draft performance targets for next year. Tony will come back and have a discussion about the best time we can do that, or the contribution we can make, and then Pritchard, for instance, that kind of point you raised about the number. Could have a look at it and say, is that realistic? How, discussion about it. It's going to be there are going to be some challenges then with that practically, in terms of how we have enough information to base our own judgments on our intuition, but we can have a crack at it, I think. Okay, good. So over to you again, Julie, move us on, please.
But both of these two you've seen previously, a number of major planning applications, what the targets are there, so I didn't intend to dwell on that one. It's in the green and hopefully we'll stay in the green all year.
Okay, and that's, is the one, there's not one above it then, is there not?
Yeah, so we just discussed it. The one above it was press, raise the profile.
Sorry, that was something I just moved down, do apologise. Yeah.
Which are both previous measures, and as I say, we've not that before.
Anything, no applause on that one?
No, my only comment is that what this whole raft of things doesn't really highlight is how important some of these measures are compared to other measures. So for instance, that one, B42, is critically important because the government will take action if we don't achieve it, whereas the one about the national coverage, okay, it's nice, but nobody's going to be too upset if it wasn't met as a target. So it's sort of chalk and cheese, isn't it?
I think again, when we first put this together, we know what our vision of the council is, what our aims, our objectives and our priorities are, which is where we start from the top and work the process down, and then we try to put measures in that obviously reflect each of those aims, priorities, etc.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'll have some more. Yes, it's that one, I take your point, but equally so is raising the profile of Daventry, because if we don't do that, then equally we have other problems. So I think some would argue that they all have their own merit, and what we try to do is give a full spread across the whole council services.
One quick, if I may,
Chair. Yeah, welcome to Tony.
This is one of the, is it 4, I think, nationally agreed targets that we have to meet as a planning. Why aren't the other 3 in here, or are they?
They're not in here, and again it's because what we put in here is a reflection of some of our many measures that show, this one, the district is recognised as being open for business. We could, if I spoke to every manager and every team in the council, they could all give me probably 10 or 15 measures that would be appropriate
So
to
it's
each
been
one.
selective, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I usually explain, obviously what sits behind here is each team's own service plan that will have those other measures in. This is a snapshot of some of those measures.
And the high level ones. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, I think really just picking up on Councillor Franklin's point is, yes, this does carry with it a set of risks of if we don't achieve. And those are picked up and they're monitored elsewhere through the risk management process. So we do have a look at those sorts of targets where there are certainly financial impacts on the council. So it's not just picked up as a straight performance issue.
Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, just saying, adding weight to them is quite difficult. Those planning barriers, aren't they? They're actually presented at the planning meeting as well, aren't they?
Well, they've stopped doing that now because of the complexity of them. They're emailed to us
I
on
was
a
just going to say, but they are there
basis.
for that committee. I mean, they're quite, so I think they are apparent, if you see them, so it's not like they're drifting off into the ether.
Yes,
Yeah. Councillor Bishop?
I've seen these previously, so we had environmental measures, didn't we, in terms of CO2 emissions and tonnage? They're completely gone then.
Whereas we carry
We haven't
through
got to the end.
Okay.
some of
Still
them,
there.
on in here, some are, some have changed.
It's changed.
This next one actually is a new one because we felt this was more appropriate. Times have changed, technology's moved on, so we've actually introduced this one: increase the uptake of usage of electric charging points. So that actually at this point in time is what was felt to be more appropriate. So that's a new one come in.
Well, do we charge for that? Do you have to put money in a slot to charge your car, or is it free?
I haven't got an electric car.
I haven't got an electric car, but I
I think
believe
it's free.
you have to pay for a card, which just gives you access, just an administration process, I think, but I think the actual...
So we're paying their electricity base for their electricity. Isn't that wrong?
I'm not sure we pay. I think it might be a government scheme, but it's certainly not a significant cost to the authority.
Yet. Not yet. But actually, that's a really interesting point because I've been wanting to know surely what our plans are up to 2040 when there's a big change in electric.
Let's stop with diesel.
So, even down to I was thinking about building houses. Well, we're starting to approve applications now. Well, about external charging points on the homes, ability to charge cars and this kind of thing. So that's going to be a real problem. I think, literally, the houses we're building now, 20 years time. So that I think needs some attention actually. I suppose I would have thought there'd be some government hand-me-downs on that one, but I think that in itself is an interesting scrutiny project to me. But in the meantime, actually, Julie, on this one, could you, I haven't moved yet.
Sorry, I was giving them the chance to read the next one.
What do we mean by a saving of 2122? A saving of what? I don't understand. Overall
CO2 set.
But is that, what's the unit of CO2? It just says 2122, doesn't really mean anything. And what, since a saving since when? How is it saving of 212? How's that been calculated?
Chairman, I don't know for certain, but I would guess that it's a saving of tonnes of CO2 that's normally what's measured.
2,122 tonnes?
I don't know for certain, I'm just trying to tell that. But I would suspect it's a calculation based on the number of kilowatt hours that have been...
Yeah, but what, based on what? Because had they not charged it, I mean, what's it comparing to? I think it needs a little bit more depth there. Could we have some more depth on that one as well, please, Julie? And actually, wherever we talk about CO2, we'll also need to put a unit there as well. And I'd also want to know the comparative period. So what are we actually talking? So I can't tell you if that's a good thing or a bad thing, so I don't understand it. Okay with that? Yeah. The next one is, are we happy to move on to the next one? So we'll get some more detail on that one in due course.
Well, this again looks at changing times, and what we're looking at here is percentage of council floor space with EPC rating E. So this is our council floor space and what its kind of rating is in terms of energy. So this is showing at the minute it's got a rating of E and above.
Is that achievable, that you're going to do 100%?
They believe so. But, you know, the earlier comment was, are we ambitious or not? Enough or not, we are ambitious and we will achieve that.
It's always that thing goes wrong, right? So, not ambitious, not ambitious. Councillor Wesley, any comments?
Just a quick check on the parameters again. When we say council floor space,
Here.
Yeah.
that's here, not industrial, not
Good question, actually.
It's
What's the scope?
It's all of our council floor space, so it does include, this particularly relates to our industrial units and the space that we have.
So
And
council.
Yes,
So every building we have basically.
yeah.
That's a good point. I think these are a bit vague, some of these targets actually we're looking at. That should be council owned property floor space. Yeah.
Again, I would just say that
Yeah.
the measures and the wording was
But surely,
agreed.
but maybe there's a way to well, even if it's in the notes, put what it actually means, what the definition is. That's important.
Is there a mechanism, Tony, for changing wording on these documents?
I think, sorry Chairman, the measures are agreed, so the form of words, if you look at the one in front, so E1.2, increased percentage of council floor space, that is the agreed measure. But what we could do, and I think is what you're really asking for, is giving some greater definition of what that
Greater
is.
definition,
Like,
clarity in the narrative.
for instance, if we felt it was appropriate to change it to council-owned floor space.
You don't have the authority to
Is there a mechanism?
change that.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have to be done through the next review of the plan. I mean, you could lobby for that.
Which is why I think if there is a change, we could ask for it to be changed at that break.
Yes.
There will be a definition, a defined way of measuring all these, which is held perhaps in more detail in service plans, so that we know, we do define what we measure. What we don't do is describe it particularly well within these plans.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the measures themselves, it's the wording.
When we put these together, I actually have that in a document
Yeah.
that each manager provides me with, giving more of the
But
detail.
with respect, you are handling these, I guess, every day. So you sort of know what they are, where you see them once a quarter.
Yeah, no, it's,
And other councillors don't even see them that often.
Exactly, so our function is to have a look at them.
So we're just trying to make it easy for those of us who can't read very well, basically.
Well, and it's for ourselves, because otherwise it goes back to the earlier point, otherwise we keep asking them, we say, no, it's on there, we discussed it before, you understand what it is, have we achieved it or not? Councillor Pritchard, your turn.
It's just, presumably these targets are achievable 100% with a financial budget behind it. So, if they're not achievable, when do we say they can't be achieved? Otherwise then we ad infinitum put money towards them to try and achieve them when there's another purpose or value for money that money could be put towards. Because that's really important, because some of this property is going to be quite historical, some of it's old. I mean, to achieve that, I don't know, do you see what I'm trying to say?
I did question it with the manager concerned, who was quite confident that he had done his plans and would reach his targets
And he
within the budget that he had and the work that he had.
And he will measure it, or was it independently measured, or the council measured?
I don't know how you measure EPC ratings.
Yeah. It's a proper measurement methodology. Come to Tony for a second.
Yeah, I don't know how it's measured. I was just picking up on the earlier point about budgets and performance. We do our performance planning, our service planning at the same time as we do our budget setting. So we will be seeking a budget to deliver against the plan. So if we want to increase the target and there's a financial effect, then we'll be seeking some budget growth to do that. So.
And you always have to look at the benefits of these things, don't you? So what's the benefit achieving those targets? Where does it take us? Let's, Councillor French, we'll comment on that. We'll Councillor Lewis.
I was just going to say that, for instance, planning, we just agreed for new cladding for, I can't remember where it was, but it was, I think, 4 industrial units, which I presume contributes to this, doesn't it? So each step is obviously planned and budgeted. I think that's what it says about refurbishment work. So they are spending money to do what's necessary to each building.
Indeed, it's just the eventual money that we do spend to meet 100% target.
Well, basically, it always comes back to the point: is it cost effective and a benefit to us to achieve those targets?
It's part of the budget then,
It's
isn't it?
part of the budgeting process. Yeah, it's a good question, and I think we can go back through that. We can query that and say, is it worth doing? What's the benefit of doing? What's the rationale behind it? I think, Julie, so far the biggest takeaway is please put more description on them. And so, we ask a simple question like, what's the unit of CO2? You can say, that's the unit, it's in the description. And it'll cut down on some of this kind of vagueness about definitions, etc. Let's go on to the next ones, please.
I think maybe I should just leave this all in little writing. This is one you have seen before, we have discussed before. The reason it's showing whites is because at the time of producing this they hadn't produced their figures. Yes, that is a contractual requirement. Yes, we have made that quite clear to them. We are having a few issues trying to get data out of them at this point in time.
Are they losing interest?
Calm down.
I'm taking that as a yes.
What I would say
Can
is
you not minute that,
it
please?
has been a little bit difficult to get data out of them recently. We have actually now got, it is a contractual requirement that we get it on the 10th working day of the month. We chase it every month. We have chased and chased and it didn't happen this month. I have now actually got the data, and actually yesterday I got July's data, which was only 3 weeks late. So that's why it's showing right there, because at the time in question I didn't have the data. I will say, having got the data, this is the only red in the entire thing.
I think we know where we are with this one, don't we? And almost it's a cost-effective thing going on here, is there's no point flogging it, you can only chase it so much. Tony, do you want to make a comment?
I think you've said.
Thank you. I don't intend to spend any more time on this particular indicator.
Just be reassured we have done everything possible to chase the data.
Yeah, I'm sure you're as target as we are, but at least we've got a plan and, like I say, if we have penciling them. The one thing we would say, and Julie, I think we've logged you particularly, I don't know what it's like in the rest of the district and its town members, about the state of the town. It's a mess. And I know particularly with 2 town members on the board, we've been raising things with as well. I know Councillor Wilson, particularly your last correspondence with Julie, you obviously recognise the good work Julie's doing chasing. We know you've got a hard job, but you will keep getting, in fact, I'm setting you off one today. But it is just a shambles. And the sooner it can end, the better.
I would just say it's not, I appreciate the comments do come in, and I will reiterate that you can make a genuine complaint on the same complaint system as everyone else, and that, that's, everybody can do that. We chase everything that comes in. We are doing everything we can contractually to improve performance, and that's where we're at. I think you perhaps summarised the situation before. We've now got less than 9 months to go.
We're certainly not going to scrutinise performance. However, what we are going to do, we'll have a few moments to do this at the end of the agenda. We'll talk about Councillor Guildford, and she could perhaps give us some good news of the contract ahead. That would probably be a better way to invest our time understanding how that's going to be structured, etc. Okay, good. Let's move off that one and on to the next one. This is quite a tricky place to sing this, actually. So I'm not quite seeing everything going on, so I'm sorry. Right.
This one again, it's a slight change from how we measured over the previous 3 years, led by the environmental health team. Number of action days facilitated to enhance our environment. Again, they have a plan for the year. His plan is we'll do 6 specific days throughout the year, and this particular one reflects, a dog warden day in terms of responsible dog ownership.
So what about impact? Councillor Pritchard, I was in Broadston earlier, had to dodge a little bit of stuff. I was in Broadston 3 times today with kids. Has this had a positive impact, do you think? I see it was in Broadston at the Fate. We've got it indicated there. What's the outcome of that? Does it make it?
Well, it wasn't just that actually, because there was a village hall, huge Prawn Science Best day where there were, although they didn't attend in person, the merch, for want of a better word, came and was given out in terms of leaflets and things. So there's more impact there. I think it will be measured when painting poo figures, scores on the doors come back. Walston isn't the worst, so maybe it's just your
It's just how it seems to go there a lot.
your
obviously,
heightened sensitivity
Yeah.
and stuff. But
Yeah.
I agree, there is somewhat of a problem, without a doubt.
So it's still work to be done.
Which is annoying all of us, but yeah, things have gone. In fact, there was a 4-page spread in the local newsletter out 2 weeks ago. So,
What is wrong with these people?
indeed, what is wrong?
Happy to move off that one. Keep an eye on that one and move on to the next one. So,
Number of high quality parks that are provided for public use. This we have had in previously, and this is Green Flag Award. Actually, I've cheated there because at the time of Q1, this is updated because it does update from other cells. We haven't got the results, so you can't min it that we have now got the results and that we have actually achieved it for the rest of the year now because we have got the Green Flag Award.
because you only have to get it once.
Yeah,
The high
then
quality,
we've got it for the year.
the high quality part of the country park is.
Are there not ambitions that we can get other parks in the district green flag?
Well, it is something we've looked at, but to refer to earlier comments as to where we're at this point in time, I think it's perhaps something for the future.
Is that why we've left it as high quality parks? Not rather than just being specific.
Well, again, it's what's measurable, and a Green Flag Award is very, very measurable.
Yeah, some beautiful ones to measure actually. You've got it or you haven't.
Well, exactly. Otherwise it's quite subjective. What's good open space, what's not. And again, this was one we played with at quite some length before we ended up back here because it's measurable.
So we've got no other parks in the whole district that could apply for a green flag?
Long term, we've got other areas that we could look at.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but long term, we could look at other areas or other parks, and we could look at the status for.
Councillor Whistler.
Yeah, just an interesting point on that because when we had the Green Flag guy did actually come here to present to us, didn't he?
Yeah.
Just an interesting point. It's not necessarily, Green Flag wasn't necessarily a measure of quality, it was a measure of your action plans, sort of by default quality. But I think the interesting thing was he was also talking about non-park areas, actually just about all these places actually being given green flags. So I think going forward there is probably opportunities around for that. Sorry, just a little.
It's an interesting part actually because what it was looking at basically it's a measure of conformance being able to get the flag.
It's like a industry quality standard.
Yeah, but actually what really interests me on this one is high quality because in the definition of the green flags it says it's a high quality space. Anyway, that's our construct, isn't it? We've said it's a high quality, it equals 1, it's a country park, and there's nothing else currently, but we achieve that one. So we could probably move on for that. That's probably one of the simplest targets we can look at.
This one again was in last year, so it's not a new target. And again, it's one, the details in there, but very much looking at, where we can restore, reuse or sustain listed buildings.
Can you go, what's the target on this one, Julie? Sorry. There's no, it's
Target's 1.
It's cumulatively by the end of the
Yeah,
year.
because again of the amount of work that goes into actually, doing something, and it's not a...
There's probably only 2 that it could be anyway,
Yes,
isn't there?
yeah.
Why is it green?
Because the target at this point in time was 0, because otherwise it would have been red all the way in. That this is where we tried to put cumulative targets in, or profile targets, because a lot of these things will take all year to build up and to actually do.
And then be finished by the end of the year?
Yes, yeah. And then
But what
finished by the
colour
end
is
of
it
the
really
year.
now? Is it really looking to be done by the end of the year?
Yes, yeah. That they are, at this point in time,
We're on track.
yes.
I would dispute that slightly.
Well, I can only
From what
go
I know.
on what they tell me. They're not jumping up and down saying to me at this point in time it will be red.
Is the colour misleading on this one? Should it be orange?
No, because our
The
target,
target
our
is nil.
RAG status does not give an amber if we think it will be red at the end of the year.
Yes, because the target is 0 at this point in time.
The target
That's
is
why it's
0, so
green,
at this
yeah.
point in time it is green.
So Overston Hall will be done, one assumes, from that in the last quarter of this year, of the
March
year.
time.
Yeah.
So if it's green all the way through, and then you get to the end and it goes red, then that's been misleading all through the area, hasn't it? You give us indication all year it can be green, then it wasn't.
It would indicate the work's been ongoing all year, but sometimes things don't happen as quick as...
It is mainly a planning application as well, which could, to be honest, is not definitive in terms of you can have it then or you can't have it, because there's all sorts of timetable issues with time slippage, and we get it with the 5-year land supply. So
it's kind of rolling.
That's why I was asking the question. Really, it's not actually a sort of significant measure.
Because what you're measuring, what are you measuring? Is the unit of measure the council intervention?
It leads to restoration, reuse, or sustainable productive use.
What am I don't understand. What am I actually measuring?
Whether it's successful or not. So
Does it say that?
So if in March Overston Hall is brought back into use through planning application and the granting of permission for the houses, I presume that would be a success.
That become green.
Yeah.
Because the bit we're really measuring is that it has to lead to restoration, reuse, or sustainable use.
It's not that it has been done, I guess, but that it's going to be done.
That's my concern. I don't. You've got one view, I've got another, and I don't understand what the view is.
Well, I looked at it a different way from planning, you see.
I don't really need to dwell on it too much, but you've got to be careful with some of these things. Don't any surprises at the end of the year. If there's any more work that needs to be done, we need to be looking at it critically. But does anybody have any further questions or comments on that one? No, okay, no, there's not like a big appetite to carry on discussing this anymore.
Again, this one's not new. We have had it previously, a number of conservation area appraisals carried out. Again,
this was lagging for quite some time last year, but
and again, there were staff issues. We've now got those staff in place. Things are moving forward, but hence, that we've seen cumulative targets there going up to 6-8 because they take time to build up and actually.
Good. So if we get to the end of the year, we have got to 8, and that's going to be a very positive performance improvement on the previous years. And I see one of them's yours actually, Cass.
Two of them, Weed and Floor.
Oh yeah, Floor as well. Sorry.
Yes. I know that the council staff held a public open day at Weedon Village Hall last month. I believe it was August the 16th. That went very well. There was a lot of interest shown by people in the village. I can't remember the lady's name. Rachel.
Rachel Booth.
Yeah. No. The lady
doing
the conservation area appraisals. But anyway, the lady in question also gave a very good presentation at Weedon Parish Council in July. We're just advising them on the process. There has been a little bit of, there have been some communication issues with Weedon Parish Council in that they had a very clear idea that they wanted a heritage impact assessment in order to assist them with their neighbourhood plan, which of course didn't meet the inspector's requirements and was not able to proceed to referendum. They therefore weren't entirely positive about the conservation area appraisal initially, but I believe they have accepted it as a positive for them now, and certainly the village was very positive in its reaction to it.
Moving in the right direction.
Yes.
So have achieved those numbers.
Yes,
good.
Absolutely. And
Okay,
for also very happy with the government.
No further comment required on that.
But for happy.
Very good, thank you. Any further comments on that one? Probably a little bit closer to those, I should think, given where they are. Good. Next one. Thank you, Julie.
Again, we did have this one last year. Services does state there, and this is classic where yes, actually it's not achieved at the minute because they've been actually looking at optimisation of the website. But it
What's
is
that mean? Mobile optimisation? I don't even know what that
So you can use it on your phone.
Yeah, so if you build a website for one particular platform, it doesn't necessarily translate well to another browser or to mobile devices,
To the smaller,
to tablets.
Gotcha.
They
So you have to
build
optimise
websites
it
in a slightly different way, so yes.
different tools.
But you will see
You
it shows.
kids.
And possibly.
Right, any questions, comments, so on? No, good, take silences. And the 1.2, any comments on that one? Things hot a bit later in the year. Let's move on, please, Julie. Thank you. I do quite like this layout actually. Apart from, like I said, the commentary. It's a bit
H2.1 you've seen before. This is sports and physical activities, and that's remained in there. H2.2 again, that's not new. It was there last year, and it's
good. Councillor Brown, anything for the first one?
So can we just flick up to the first one
Are
again?
you fresh out the field on this one?
So we're passing Q1 at the moment. And that, no, Q1 of 1617, I mean. Yeah, which just...
Yes, scroll
sorry.
to the left a little bit. So,
I just wanted to see that there was an increase in
Increase
Q1
on the-
last year. There was,
contractually there's a target increase each year as to what they.
Quite substantial actually, isn't it?
I think it's off the top of my head, I think it's about 3%. Well, my maths aren't very good at this point in time, so I could be, and you know what, I can't remember and I put it in, but there is a percentage increase in the contract that they are obliged to meet each year, but they meet it anyway, so it's not.
even from the master description of the target, that looks pretty easy to get your head around, doesn't it? Pretty straightforward. So you can see exactly what it is, where it's going, how it's going in the right direction. So that's good news.
So can I just ask for a clarification from Julie? The contract stipulates that the target increases by 3%, not
Yes.
that their performance increases by 3%. So
No,
the fact that they more than doubled their target
it's
last
the
year doesn't
target.
mean that...
No, I couldn't add 10% to their. It states what the target, that there is a percentage target increase each year.
To be honest, if they're that far ahead, it doesn't matter what the target is, it's what
No,
they're actually achieving.
there is that, and I do, to
They're doing
be
that well.
honest, you know, this is mine, I do compare it like for like, you know, on how they've performed with this time last year and what's gone on. So,
And they've increased from Q1 of last year by a
Yeah,
significant amount,
yeah.
so I think that's very good news all
It's about
around.
15%, isn't it?
yeah, and it's, you know, it's in their interest, they get the income, and that's why I measure things like, you know, how many memberships were sold, because that's quite important to their income line, and it is a measure of, you know, how good the service is and what's going on there.
Sounds good, doesn't it? Particularly when you say how much is going on, it's not going on. This is on. It's vibrant places really on this. Any further comments on Councillor? Any members? No? Happy to move on to the next one. I think you could be the news on that way, if only the other people were like that or beyond.
It's because that means minuses.
Sorry? Right.
Sport Leo, this one again was there last year, so you're probably all quite familiar with this one.
I think some of that is hard work done by the communications
Yep.
people.
Yes, we had this one in a bit to look at, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was red for a while, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, that was all
But
good.
it's voluntary, so you can't make people
Yeah,
say
because it's demand-led,
Yeah.
so it very much depends on what the demand is. Again, happily in the green.
I think it's a good case study actually, where we can add something here, because we remember looking at this last year, being a bit concerned about it, and then we discussed it, and then we had a bit of an action come out of it, and we saw improvement. It was a bit slow at the start, wasn't it? And then it gathered pace and we're still there, so no further action on that, that's good. Pick it up.
This one again, this was a new one, number of enforcement interventions to improve the housing conditions of tenants.
So the target was 21.
Oh, I've just hit the wrong button there, so I was trying to move across. There we go. Target was 21 and they've actually made 28 at the minute.
Shouldn't that be red then? Because if we're making more, that means it's worse.
Yeah, what drives those? Can you talk to us about that? So have we done 28 compared to 21? What's driving that?
Well again, this is a new measure, so it's kind of a little bit of...
Or asking questions, I don't understand practice.
I'd have to go back and get more information from you on, you know, exactly what they do, but I think, you know, I'm guessing, I don't know if you know any more on this one, Tony, but that, again, it was a little bit demand-led, because they have to wait for
you'd want somebody to prompt it to go and
Yeah,
do all of this.
yeah, so I'm guessing
It's
it
landlords
should be,
not doing repairs.
yes, it would be demand-led, so if all the landlords out there were perfect, we wouldn't have any enforcement interventions going on.
So that's why I'm saying 28 is actually worse.
Yeah, it's a bit like my cremations target, this one, what's good and what's not, isn't it? Is it good that we've achieved or is it not?
Is that, I've got to ask now, you mentioned it, is that target on this, the cremation
Yours
stuff?
is.
It's not in here, no, it's in my service plan,
How
you're
many,
welcome to
can I ask
see
you
it.
how many there are?
But it varies each month because it's profiled, because
Winter and summer.
yes, some months are
Goodness.
better or worse death months
Can
than
I book my
others.
place now?
I don't know, I'm sure it's not like buying, you can pre-book your burial plot for cremations go into, yeah. No, I do measure that and I have that information, but it's not one we feed through into here.
But it's a good point. I mean, it's a good point actually. Green gives you the right impression. You've exceeded it, you've met it, but it's kind of negative consequences. Yeah, connotation.
We'd actually prefer it to be none, all the way around, no interventions, because everyone's done a good job.
Exactly. Yeah. Is this Councillor Chartner's area?
Well,
Environment.
Is it
environmental health will be Councillor Warren.
Councillor Warren. That's it. Get against it. Yeah. Can we keep an eye on that one? Perhaps get more thinking about who we might need to get a bit more detail from, because unfortunately on some of these I feel like a bunch of wise monkeys actually. Nobody really quite understands it, to be able to.
Just to say, I know this is an aside, but you might be interested in Nottingham. They're introducing a landlord's licence to prevent this. So it's £600 for 5 years, but if you're an accredited landlord, it only costs £400. So it's their take of stopping these sorts of interventions.
We discussed on a database a couple of years ago, if you remember, not in Scrutiny, but it came to main council, and it was voted against at the time. Maybe looking at the situation now, Councillor Pritchard, anything from you in this kind of broader area from the work you've been doing to No comments, maybe just something to think about in the wider landscape of your work. Let's keep an eye on that one, and, because if you're tracking at 28 now, by the end of the second quarter, if that goes way up, perhaps you'll have a look at that. We'll get somebody to come and talk to us about it. 3.2?
Again, this is one we've had before and we don't measure till the end of the year because it depends when things are actually delivered and it depends on when they've actually gone through. But what we do there is give a history of kind of sites that we know are already active.
Just going forward, would it be possible to have a running total of how many new homes will be delivered within the active sites?
Could you put numbers in brackets after the development and the site?
Or even just a total at the bottom. Obviously the Monksmoor development is very, very large, whereas the Blocker Road development and floor is relatively small, which is picking out
15 or more.
Within those 15 or more.
Yeah.
Yes. How many 15 or more?
Yes, yeah.
Could be 1,000 people.
Yeah.
It could be 16.
Precisely.
Yeah, because some context. Could we have a little bit more data for this, please, Julie, to give us a bit more clarity? Again, you could say it exists somewhere else, but it's really helpful for the folks.
No, I think the reason they don't is because it's about the number of new homes that are actually delivered and they don't know till the end of the year how many have actually been delivered. So, but I'll come up with a way of putting some numbers in.
No, but all those are planning applications, it'll say for 42 houses, so so it should say 42 next year. Whether they do 40 or 45, doesn't matter in the end.
So
I think we did have that information in, I think it was actually agreed to take it out, but I'll ask them to put it back in.
Well, I think we're simple people on this committee. We like lots of information that's easy to see. We understand this, we have questions about it. We'll move on to the next one for Isa.
I've got a feeling this mouse is going to die in a second. It seems to be not very fit.
It's cold.
It's
winter.
as well.
September 5th is now winter. Bring your car in.
Yeah.
Again,
Right, okay.
page 4.1 was a measure last year. the same measuring's gone in, and that's in the green there, voluntary sector services.
This one was up and down last year, wasn't it?
It was very much up and down.
But he finished the year behind.
Yeah, yeah. But it started off just over target for the first quarter.
So we've revised it this year down to actually even the baseline is lower than last year, basically. Because it was 14,449.
No, I'm not sorry. This is a profile target, so it's cumulative throughout the year. So our target for the end of the year is 54,000, which is lower than last year.
It's lower than where we finished up last year. And we've finished ahead of the quarter. So basically what does that number means? How many people we've helped? Is that actual residents, unique people?
Possibly unique transactions.
Yes.
So it might not be actual residents.
Well, it may be one resident benefiting on 3 or 4 occasions.
Right, but the actual, when I look at 13604, it's actual residents.
That's the number of interventions.
So that's interesting.
Because one resident having 13,000
Exactly, yeah.
goes.
Yeah, goes back to that point about interventions versus some other measure. So in actual fact, it's not residents then, is it, by that measure? No.
Definition of them.
Julie, could we have clarity on what that means by definition of residents, please? Because I would take it as resident meaning unique person, not an intervention with a resident. In which case, it should quite clearly state number of interventions with residents, which have therefore benefited.
I think it is actually a number of residents benefited, but I will have to check.
Yes, please, thank you. What does this, in terms of the figure, again, sorry for some of those questions because it's the first time we've seen this committee, but what does 13604, what does saying we can do 54,000 of these this year compared to the target 58,000 last year or 54? What does that say about what we're doing?
I think again that's a reflection on what their budget is, what their resources are and what they think is realistic.
But I think, if I may, Chair, is that the target is irrelevant. If somebody's got a requirement, they will come to us.
Yeah.
So you could argue that the number doesn't need a target, it's just a number. So there might be more than or less than. It doesn't really matter, because you, again, it's like you can't make people come to you.
Exactly, like the consultations,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah, we can follow, but in the meantime, let's have a clarity on the definition.
I think looking at the target itself, it must be interventions rather than residents, because 54,000 would be the vast majority of residents within the district.
That's why I kind of posed the question, because it's quite a high number. And already it says you've helped 13,500 people. That's like, what's Daventry, 22,000?
22, yes, it's half a Daventry.
Half Daventry already have been helped. Seems high. Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, just a point, just come up on what Councillor Frenchman said. I do think the number is actually important in this, because you have to accept that you may not be actually able to help the number of people that you need to help. For instance, we all know that the Citizen Advice Bureau, for instance, is under severe pressure, and the resources actually could be very, very limited there. This could actually...
So physically couldn't help people because the resources
we should be
aren't
targeting, so we want to help the number of people. And yes, maybe they don't turn up, but there's also a point that you should be looking at who we're not helping, because the resources are there. So it goes from both ways, doesn't it?
I think it's really interesting actually, because having a new set of figures or looking at this afresh means perhaps we need to think about some of these a bit more critically. Or maybe because things have changed and maybe they've become quite intense in some areas. It's perhaps raising the game and I think we need to do.
This one's actually been there for 3 years.
Yeah, I know this one has, but I'm just in terms of
Yeah.
general observation about our thinking this evening. And actually, to be honest, I think probably therein lies the point that perhaps have been a bit blind to what even residents means ourselves actually. Just shows you we have to keep going. Let's move on to 4.2.
Right, this is the new one this year. A number of volunteer activities undertaken by parish councils and community groups. We had something similar last year, but it has slightly under target for those first 3 months.
How do you get to know about these? How do they communicate and report to us?
Because the team actually speak directly to the parish council, so it's, they actually find out what's going on and they have that engagement with them. And they've actually said there, they know they've had 20 plus parish councils that are waiting till the autumn to do more things. So it is communication and constantly talking to each other.
And Julie, this is a new one, isn't it?
It's a new measure. We had something similar last year, but
hence no numbers as well. So, just go back up a second. Oh no, it's okay. You don't need to. I've answered my question. Anybody any comments on this one? I mean, anybody benefited from this or been involved or anything?
There's the main litter picking and stuff like that, isn't it? Council grants, I guess.
It's generally, we get quite a bit of litter picking and what can they do in their areas and things like keep it and tidy schemes and those sort of things.
And what would the role of the district council be? How would we actually? What does it mean? How does it? So I don't understand the measure. So the number of volunteer activities. Who are the volunteers? Is that the parish council getting a bunch of volunteers to go and do something?
Yes, and we help facilitate it by providing them with the litter picking kit, posters, leaflets, that sort of thing. So we provide.
Do you include money?
Generally, no.
So it's kind of in-kind contributions?
Yes, yeah. We provide the initiatives, or we might provide the equipment or the leaflets or...
Do you provide a kind of van for them to put the rubbish on? Well, you being us, sorry.
Sometimes.
So are we promoting ideas to parish councils for them to think about these sorts of things?
Yeah. When we've got a particular initiative, like Keep Britain Tidy was a classic, we'll put the information together, distribute that out to all the parish councils to actually
So we're proactive as well as
yes.
reactive.
Yeah.
I
I think with most of these schemes, yes, they are quite proactive. They will come up with a scheme and then put it out there and say, do you want to take part? So that's generally how these work, particularly around littering, dog food, and those sort of campaigns.
And what's the Clean Green Coordinator project? Can you tell us about that?
Off the top of my head, I would like to go into detail.
You can't throw an answer like that. Anybody any final questions? No, we'll skip on that. We'll keep it on that as well. Let's move on to the next one. Gosh, it's amazing how long this takes. It's the first one, so yeah, more detail next time. We'll go through the questions.
I think that's why we normally only talk about the red ones.
And a good reason to talk about the green ones, actually, now I think about it.
Percentage of council tax collected, that again going back to your point about what measures are important, it's fundamental obviously to the finance of the council. It's not new, it was there last year and we're just on target for that one. Obviously that also reflects that we've got quite a few new properties coming on board as well.
What do you mean it reflects? Oh, the number.
Yeah, no, up here, because we actually state additional 65 properties have been added, so, although we measure in percentages, we've got new properties coming on board all the time as well.
Any questions on that one? I think that's reasonably explained. Strange enough, we never seem to dwell on this one so much, because if the money's not coming in, it's pretty quick to focus on, isn't it?
And again, this one below it, this last year again, it was felt, financially it's quite fundamental to our budget, percentage of non-domestic rates collected.
Comments, questions on this one? No, happy to move on. We'll go on to the next one, please. You almost get to that over in a minute.
I'm sure this mouse has got a complete life of its own.
Live now.
Just doing funny things. Income received from commercial rents. Again, we measured this last year. Again, very fundamental to where we stand as a council. You'll see we are above target.
Do we put the rents up every year?
I'm not sure on individual properties. They're all subject to rent reviews, but it's part of the contractual arrangements.
It's just the target's quite a lot higher than it was in... Is that because there's
last year.
more units?
Well, generally, sorry for you, Chairman, we go through refurbishment programme,
Yes.
so when the units are better, more marketable,
Yeah.
the rates will go up.
Nico?
Great, so 421 grand at the end of this year extra is done. Good, and that's, like I say, part of the refresh, and that's Councillor Paul's area, wasn't it? Yeah. Good, so that's...
I think that also reflects on your question earlier about investments in units and the
Yes, good
EPC
point.
rating. You know, we are investing, we are getting more income in through the rentals, so that's all part of, as Tony said, you know, the whole budget planning cycle.
And of course, some of those businesses themselves are located and will be interested in these factors too, and energy efficiency and so on. Good, happy with that one, I think we are.
Again, this one, it's not new, council-owned commercial floor space that is occupied. And we are doing very well in terms of our occupancy.
Would that 3% be like one unit?
Certainly, yeah, we're very close to, just one.
Brilliant, I think they do a fantastic
yeah.
job on this.
I mean, I'm led to understand we can rent quite a lot more out if we have more at this point in time.
Quick, build them.
Yeah, which is again something we're looking at, so it goes up and down a little bit because you have tenants come and go each month, so it kind of depends on the
Time
month.
lag, isn't it?
But certainly that.
Well, last year was the lowest was 96, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's ran very close to capacity for the last year or so.
That kind of tells us we need to crack on, doesn't it, and building new units.
Yeah.
And the Knoll was one we were looking at actually, which
Yeah, that's gone through plan.
That's
going
gone
through
through
plan.
yeah.
And there's that one in Heartlands has just gone through.
Yeah. So this
But most of them are built because we're getting demand from somebody who wants to move
Yeah.
in. So it's not as if that figure will change particularly.
Yeah.
No, exactly, but I suppose it's a good point actually, because you can't go above 100 by definition.
No.
But you could still, and I suppose the problem is if you were sitting here and it would be down at 90%, you'd say, what are we doing?
Yeah, but you could increase your tenancy but decrease your percentage because you built more and they're being occupied.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? Yeah. So I suppose it's that top number that's really important, the actual amount of money that came
Yes.
from them. But even that's not profitability, and that's good. Okay, any further questions on that one? No, I suppose the point is there, isn't it? It's having an attractive place to do business and set up here and have a good units, etc. Let's go to the next one.
Again, this one was in last year in terms of medium-term financial plan. I think that's self-explanatory in that where we are, but we know we've got challenging times ahead.
Yes, I mean, but okay, on those ones, anybody any comments? We'll move on to the next one, please.
Right, this
We
is
don't tend to get too involved in the numbers on this committee actually historically.
this one again is a new one that's just come in. It's got a life of its own. It's doing all sorts of things. What's happening? Go from 1 through 2.
It's a bit hard to scroll. So, percentage of internal health and safety audit recommendations that are actually internal health and safety audit. What is this internal health and safety audits done by what, our internal audit team? Is it?
By our health and safety team, where they've actually, for instance, in May, to give you an absolute example, we looked very much at bomb dispersal and violent incident arrangements. So they've done an audit of what are our bomb scare procedures. They've made 10 recommendations. You know, where are we going with that? So we've rewritten all our terrorism plans, or what you're doing in emergency plans, all reflecting the current situation. So they look at different things, you know, each month in terms of, you know, where we should be in health and safety and what we should be considering.
With respect, 96% target and nothing achieved is actually a red, isn't it?
No, the reason it's amber is because they believe they will achieve it by the end of the year. So you do have the option of you can go to amber if you believe you will achieve it by the end of the year.
I don't really understand this one actually, because can you go for that one again? So what did who does the actual work here?
Well, it's the health and safety team.
Yeah.
We have the health and safety team led by Ed Cook.
Yeah.
So it's his team. So they will audit different kind of procedures or operations going on within the council. So they will have their audit planned through the year, and they'll look at different things. So, for instance, in May, their plan was that they looked at what are our procedures in the event of bomb threats, terrorism, etc.
So they audit the procedures?
So in
Yes.
May, there were 10 recommendations,
There were 10 recommendations to that actual audit.
and none of those have been implemented.
They've all been implemented.
Sorry?
They've all been implemented, actually.
So that's...
But the June and July hasn't been implemented yet.
So where's... I don't understand what 96... It doesn't... If you've implemented 10 out of 10 on that particular report, then that's 100%, isn't
Yeah, but
it?
it's actually for April, May and June.
You've got the other ones there as well.
So it has, so what they've actually done at this point,
So a percentage of them has been implemented.
Actually, it's nonsense, actually, because it says here 10 recommendations, 10 recommendations, management feedback from the property services. That doesn't tell me it's been implemented.
No, that's why I was confused.
no, well, to be fair, this was done at the end of June. I know for a fact that they've been implemented, just because I happen to be your bomb disposal expert. At this point in time, they were recommendations. I can tell you, because I happen to know that they have now been implemented.
This is probably out because it's lagging in.
Yes, so I probably shouldn't have said.
No, it's okay.
The point is, when a health and safety recommendation comes out, we tend to look at it quite quickly because it needs looking at quite quickly.
What I'm a little bit puzzled by is that the health and safety team are doing audits of procedures. Are they actually auditing the operationalisation of the procedure, or are they auditing basically the policies and procedures themselves? In which case, I don't know
In this case, they actually audited the procedures in terms of were the procedures correct, because short of us actually having a bomb scare, it's quite difficult to actually audit it happening. So I think it depends on what the actual thing is that they're looking at.
Are the procedures correct?
Well, in this case, yeah, they have looked at are the procedures correct.
It's not about correct, it's about are they fit for purpose.
Yes, yeah.
So they could be just needed a tweak, or they could be rewritten, or there could be new ones added.
So they're not really auditing in that respect, are they? They're kind of almost advising
or reviewing.
Reviewing it, yeah, it's not an audit. An audit is when you say this is how something should be done, and you're saying have you followed that procedure? So it's kind of slightly misleading.
Again, Chairman, it's about definition, and we need to get some more information for you.
I think so too. We're given the targets, good road testing this evening, haven't we? Yeah. Does that make sense? You feel that too, Tony? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so please. Anything else on there anybody want to talk about? Okay, so can we have a little tidy up on what that means, please? That'd be really helpful. By the way, we know you're a messenger for many of these things, and we know that like the whole council is following you.
Disclaimer.
We don't not really blame you.
I've had a bad day all round, so
I've got broad shoulders,
That's
haven't
okay.
I?
That's okay. You come in, you know you have to be in a good mood to get in, don't you? Because by the time you leave, you know, but you know it's only professional work. Right, it's nothing personal. Let's have a look at the next one.
this is my fault that the text hasn't pulled through because I've put a different screen on here to split it, to be able to scroll. So there is some text in here that, apologies, that's missing. This isn't, this is new. This is again a new one because we very much felt that actually the most important people in the council are its employees for the council to deliver. So it's important that we actually look at how, what is their well-being and how happy are our employees.
So we have a measure of that, do we?
We have a measure through this this workplace well-being charter. So
How does the charter measure?
it's do you want it's your area, Tony? Do you want to add to that, or would you like me to?
It's not actually, but I think I can. It's a standard. So we are assessed at being at level 1, level 2, level 3 of the standard.
Who does that?
It's a set of criteria that you...
It's like green flag, I guess.
Yes,
isn't
to
it?
be honest, that's exactly a bit like your five-star hotel. It's a set of criteria. They come in, they might talk to some staff.
Oh, who's they? The people who do the charter
Yeah,
assessment?
the
Oh, they're
workplace wellbeing charter people who award the charter. Sorry, Tony, I was thinking. It
So
was,
we're staying at level 1, but I presume we have
yeah.
aspirations to get to 3, do we?
Ultimately, I expect we do. I think it's a fairly new.
It is very new. We've only just started.
So,
Yes, I said aspirations, I didn't say
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
so
Got you. So basically, we signed up to this. Is this common in councils? Local authorities? One of the first. There's something called the Workplace Wellbeing Charter. There's a charter. Could you? And then basically, at some point in time, we're measured against that.
Yes, again, it's like a quality standard.
Yeah,
Quality
yes.
standard.
Yeah.
What have they been in and tested and checked? And
They actually, they look at your various kind of things that you've got going on in the council. They might come in and actually talk to some staff and actually interview them, get their feedback.
they haven't been yet, though.
They have been, yes,
Ah.
yes. Which is why we've already been awarded it.
Do we get awarded though? Is it like a once a year sort of thing, and they basically say like a star system? Is it a bit like Investors and People?
Yes,
Yeah.
very simple.
Right. So what we're like bronze or something?
Well, at the minute we've got for level 1, which is what we've achieved.
No, but in IIP.
Oh, in
we used to do
IIP.
IIP. Do we still do IIP? or
Yes,
something?
it's the next
get ahead of yourself.
measure down.
Nice. Preemptive, that's correct. So, why do you do both?
They're different things, I think, Chairman. The Workplace Wellbeing Charter is a relatively new standard that the body that's behind it are looking to push it out into other organisations, and using local authorities to help them with that. So we need to be achieving a standard ourselves before we can then go out and push it out.
Yeah. And this is the sort of thing that Councillor Griffin can tell us more about as well, as a portfolio owner, because she's instrumental in this issue.
I'm not sure quite where this sits. It may sit as environmental health.
Yes,
So it might sit
it would.
Environmental health.
Yeah, it's more, this one's slightly more health and well-being based, i.e.
It's like the work.
Is it
Do
like
we-
workstation assessments and being...
Well, and that's a bit more, no, it's a bit more like, do we encourage you to cycle to work, and do we provide you with showers, and what fitness activities do we have, and it's a bit more like,
The physical
and it's a bit
environment as
more
well,
physical, a
facilitates
bit
it.
more health and well-being. So
Healthy
lots of
mind, healthy
initiatives
body,
going
yeah.
round about encouraging you not to drink too much, and your awareness of smoking and things like that. Whereas IIP is more about how, training, how we look after staff in the, so they're looking at different things.
It's still HR though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all HR. About just different angles, I suppose, and kind of. Well, I guess one's more updated in its thinking.
So it's not environmental health, it's not environmental, it's HR.
I think
Physical work environment.
I think, Chairman, as you say, it's about the work environment, and all these things, all these targets actually, will sit under one person or another, but then a lot of them are crossing over various parts of the organisation. So it may sit where we think is most relevant in terms of the management structure and the links then with portfolio holders.
Okay, good. Okay. Anybody got any further questions on that? So when you go back, by the way, if there's anything unanswered, you need to go back to the various portfolio holders officers and what we say. If you think you've had a hard time from us to answer, just say to me, just put the information in the sheet and we'll have it, and it'll get easier once, because like I say, it's the first time we've seen some of these. We want to get our heads around them ourselves properly. I know you could say for the whole process, but now they're emerging as new numbers, you get a different feel for them. Right, nearly there. Nearly there. So we've done with that one. Everybody happy?
Yeah.
You happy with IIP? Oh, sorry.
Sort of
I thought we covered it in the round actually, because we're more familiar with IP, but the other issue we
with green for this year was...
Yeah.
That's good. C4. I think Councillor Wesley always likes this one actually. Anything to do with surveys, customers.
this one's percentage of customers satisfied or better from the service they received from the council. We did have this measure last year. I know we have a lot of debate about this
Yes,
measure
we do.
generally.
In fact, last piece of work on that one. On average, we have 2,250 face-to-face contacts a quarter.
This is about improving public consultation.
Yeah. Kind of that, is that kind of basic?
I disagree. This is customer satisfaction responses, which is a different thing from public
It's
consultation.
interaction with customers.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
It's when they've actually been in here, so it is
Yes.
face-to-face contact.
Do you stop them on the way out, do you, and ask them questions?
Yes, so you've got to remember that they've had a reason to come in the first place.
Yes. So you're saying on average you have 2,250 people come through the door, basically,
Yes,
every quarter.
yes.
And on this occasion we've got a survey rate of 28%. So in other words, are you saying 28% of the people come in, 2,250 roughly, got surveyed? Could we have the exact numbers on here in the quarter then? So how many people in the quarter did the survey?
632.
It says there they've got 632 replies.
Oh right, so sorry, I was getting confused. So 600 replies somebody you've actually spoken to,
Yeah,
face to face,
And that's 28%.
yeah.
20%, okay. So the maths is there.
Yeah.
Councillor, is there any comments?
No, I think it's just really, really pleasing that it's up to those sort of levels.
It was quite low before,
It
wasn't
was
it?
really, really
Yeah.
low before. It was, and I think 28% is absolutely excellent, to be honest, to get a
Oh,
core,
there you go.
to get a core of people to fill out a survey for.
Well, I
So
think that, yeah,
it's
sorry,
pretty,
that's the one issue, and the other issue is remembering that if they've had to come in the first
Yeah, yeah,
place.
that's
Probably
Yeah.
in the first place, most
Yes,
cases.
possibly they've come in with a complaint in the first place, so it's not about whether their complaint's been resolved or not, it's how they've been treated.
Yes.
So I think actually that is,
Well
a really
done.
good result.
It's a good reflection on the staff, isn't it?
Yes.
Councillor Pritchard.
No, it's very good, really good, and survey rate of nearly 30% is fine. Just one question is the anonymity of receiving the survey, because of course, if you're speaking to somebody who then may feel, even though that interaction itself has been closed, the next interaction will be more positive. If it was anonymous, that might affect your response rate. What in terms of percentages? See what I'm trying to say? If it's a form or a question,
Who gives it
hand
to them,
back
when do you
in,
give it to them?
or is it an anonymous box and there's a sheet? You see, there's a huge disparity there.
Could you talk us through the method again? How do you get that information then? And has it changed since Councillor Wilson did some work on it? Because I think basically it's like you say, isn't it? When do you hand them the happy sheet to say how's your service been today? And who does it? And yeah, so if there's sometimes people behave in a certain way, don't they?
They should be identifiable, any respondent,
Yeah.
really. If they are, then that undermines the satisfaction rate, not only that's
Yeah, because actually if you were to
fundamentals of
say,
any-
could you fill this and put it in the box and where, then it's anonymised.
Yeah, if you've been in talking about your council tax or something like that.
It's too beautiful at the end of it. Yeah. Do you know who that is?
I think they give, do you know exactly, Tony?
I don't know, Chairman, I think we get that information from
Yeah.
Yes, please, Tony. You've got a good list there. Thank you.
I think they give it out, and then because they say we received 632 replies, that's how many actually come back.
That might be
So I
why it
think
says it like that.
That's exactly what
Yeah.
they do, but I will just confirm whether they've changed it or not.
Good. Councillor Wilson, did you have any light to throw on this before?
Not really. I mean, the piece of work was really to try and get more people to do the surveys.
Yeah.
From memories, it's a while ago now. Part of the survey is not just whether it's not just resolution. It's actually whether you were seen in time and whether the people were courteous and actually whether they did actually help you. So it's not just did it work out okay? Because obviously, if you're coming in and you want some money off your council tax and you don't get it, you're not going to be very happy. But the fact that somebody saw you at a point in time and they were polite and they actually explained the situation to you, I think
You were heard basically,
the
that sense.
the whole situation was to actually be much more proactive in getting the forms in front of people to fill them out, because I think we were down to
It's quite low before, real.
3 or 4% or something. So,
We're taking quite high numbers off quite a low
Yeah.
response rate. And I think that's what precipitated.
that's
the-
what we should say.
Yeah, good. So that's noted then, so that's an important performance improvement, but still some questions we exchanged and we'll come back to us. Good. And then we have the final one, which is about the corporate plan.
It's just a summary of
So-
where we are at this
self-reflection.
point in time.
Good, well there you go, Julie. You might come in a bad mood. We're still taking
Just leave it in the
So
worst
came
one.
in a bad mood.
I think was that effect. But at least we ended on a positive note, so that's good news.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie.
Sorry, Chairman.
It's okay, you were taking all our time anyway with your questions, so thanks again. Much appreciated. So, honorary member of Scrutiny. Good. So, thank you. Yeah, if you can go and fix all those queries,
Ah, we've done by 10 o'clock tomorrow.
that's.
Don't mean it that big either.
Thank
10
you.
o'clock tomorrow, what kind of slacking is that? Thank you very much, appreciate your time. Thank you. Right, onwards. The next thing we're going to look at is, well, we're going to call it the Roll and Work programme, and here it is, actually. It's big and ugly as it always is. And I don't think there's anything in particular to note on here, but basically what we did when we returned into this year, we knocked a couple of the ones off from earlier, so now we're sitting on number 6 is the lowest number we have. And can you scan across, please, Jeremy?
I can't see from here.
Yeah, just move it to the. In fact, you want me to? I can do myself.
I don't mind doing it, I just can't see from that.
I can even do that myself, I think. Thank you. That's great, actually. That's enough. So, what I'm really pleased to see is we had all these one-year reviews. And actually, you can see on here these were complete, and that's why they're in that part of the list, because we hadn't reported on those in this current year, because that was obviously the last council meeting. Okay, so they'll stand there. So number 6 is the lowest, and then all of the other stuff we're going to go through today anyway.
Will they all come off then, the ones that
The one-year reviews will come off
Yes.
this time next year.
oh, so they won't come off, okay.
No, and that's because what we did was we can take them off once we've reported to the full council. Yeah. So we reported to the full council, and then these were done at the last meeting. I've got that right, haven't I? Get something of that. So anyway, but basically that's
Get
it.
the idea.
But the great news is anyway, we finally got through that glut of one-year reviews, and I want to thank you all for that piece of work, because it's a bit of a challenge. I remember we had a bit of a headache meeting, Tony, where there was so much on it, it was just a bit congested. If we had to bounce a few of those along. But now I think we've moderated that now, it should come out and ticking over at a nice effect. Good. So that's that, we can probably put that away for all intents and purposes again actually, unless you've got any questions on it. And then we'll focus on the actual items here. These still fall on the Royal Work Programme. So, the first one is actually, assignment 21, can DDC do more to support the cases of the homelessness in the district? And we're going to have a very quick update from Councillor Pritchard on his progress. And then what we're going to do is we're going to ask him to complete it for the November meeting. That's still okay, isn't it?
That's fine, yeah. It's with a degree of self-disappointment that I haven't actually got on with this a bit more, but due to a multitude of things, workload pressures, and also more statistical evidence coming out in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and more consultees actually, and within the council itself, that I think it'll take a long review for me just to finish this off comprehensively.
It's a serious piece of work, isn't it?
It is really.
And there is one point actually, if we get into detail, there is support actually we can have from Philippa, isn't there, in some areas of this if we need some extra. What's the best way to manage that, Tony? I mean, historically we've done the project, and we've always had that challenge of, people have a day job as well as doing this, and it's quite a serious piece of work. What's the scope of Philippa's support we can have, and how should we access that?
Her number's actually on the agenda there for the page. The best thing is to give her a ring or drop her an email, and whatever task that you've got, and certainly she can help with research, she can help tidying up information to get it in a presentable form for committee. But she'll need guidance in where you want to go.
Yeah.
Certainly help with research.
Does she have other responsibilities? Or is she just scrutiny improvement?
She has other responsibilities, and she's only 3 days a week. So, but there's some capacity there to help, and if she's overburdened, then she'll let us know, and we can see what we can do with that. So
That's good. So it's okay basically for any of us, particularly Councillor Pritchard in this case, to go and say, could you use some help on this please? And give her a little bit of guidance. Obviously copy you in if it's an email, like courtesy, etc. take it from there. You could always come back and query it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm quite happy for members to contact Philippa direct. I mean, if there's a particular onerous piece of work, then perhaps let me know, or Philippa will let me know.
Okay, good, and she can come back. Are you okay with that, Councillor Bridger?
Yeah, that's great.
Great, thanks. Okay, over to you.
I mean, it's turned into somewhat of a crib sheet really, who I've spoken to, who has responded, who hasn't, what documents are available, including those that are pending and are available, like Health Watch. So the emerging recommendations which I identified going back in June, is it June?
I think
June.
June you gave the last update.
Yeah.
Which is the
They are the same.
They
They are the same because there's no further work. Do you want me to read them out?
Well, I don't mind if. What do people, other members want to hear, or are you happy with?
We're happy because they're the same. If they're the same, yeah.
They're exactly the
Unless
same.
there's any material changes. Because I know you two.
I just need to get on with it, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. It's the same with all these pieces of work, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, I know it's a subject that's true to your heart anyway. So, I know you're a serious chap when it comes to this research methodology and put it all together. So, if you're happy to simply say we'll have it to you in November, we've got Philippa's support, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. And just remember those deadlines. You always have to work back, which is why it seems to come upon you quite quickly. Yeah. And that's why I do spend a little bit of time reminding you, obviously, to get things in. Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't just bring them on the evening.
No.
Yeah. Let's move on then to Councillor Frenchman. You've got a piece of work you'd like to look at, which is the scrutiny of scrutiny. And we've got this one feels a bit navel-gazing,
Yes.
but I think it's...
I was just reading through it again. I thought, oh, okay. Who am I going to interview? Oh, it's Colin.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
And Tony.
I was thinking about how to chair that meeting when it comes in. It's going to be quite interesting. Okay, do you want to talk us through that?
Yes, well, I mean, it all started when you and I, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, went to some training, but you weren't able to get there for some reason. And it opened my eyes to, they do things completely differently. Part of that was down to the fact that they have a different structure, but it was so different that I thought, okay, perhaps we need to review what we do. And it occurred to me that we're at one end of the spectrum. It appeared the borough were at the other end of the spectrum completely, but there's probably something in the middle that's sort of an amalgam of both systems. But I was looking to see what were the best bits of each system. And it may involve some radical changes, it may involve nothing at all.
Because I think actually the last time it was looked at probably is when Councillor Long was doing it, and we reduced the number of meetings, and then he handed it over to Councillor Charter, isn't it actually? Yeah. And then Councillor Charter gave me the structure to me, and then I've been chairing that way pretty much.
But it's not so much the structure, it's also what we do.
What we do, the scope of our coverage.
Yeah.
And so on.
I mean, for instance, I was just talking to Adam, and at NCC they call in decisions. We don't do that. We look at things that we think have fallen through the cracks, which is a slightly different thing.
Yeah.
So it may be, and I don't know, that there may be options for us to, and I'm using a very contentious issue, the canal arm would have been a prime example for us to say the compromise that was reached was perhaps something that Scrutiny could have come up with some time ago and then stopped all the angst that has happened. I don't know.
And I think actually the one we looked at tonight, looking at next year's figures, is probably useful. We talk a lot about intervention, but not about our intervention.
Yeah.
As is almost historically about performance drift and concern over just being presented the right information,
Yeah.
etc.
But that's quite important in its own right, because it ensures that our fellow councillors are given the right information that they understand, because they don't get the chance we do to discuss it.
Yeah.
They have to just take it on face value, don't they?
Go somewhere.
Yeah, just as an aside to what you just said, Chairman, that the direction of the other scrutiny improvement committees, certainly at Northampton Borough and at the County Council, is very much policy driven, whereas, as you just said, ours is very much about performance driven and analysing and implementation. I don't know within the Constitution whether there's any scope for us to effectively pull things out of the cycle of whether it's scrutiny, strategy to council and the natural progression that exists.
I think that's actually the starting place. Yeah. Quick word from Tony. I think Tony wants to.
I think just picking up from Councillor Frenchman's earlier comments, I think the context, we need to understand the context of how we are or how we do scrutiny here, and it goes back to the changes that came in with the Localism Act, excuse me, which looked at structures of councils and the way that scrutiny should be used or could be used within the different models. And looking at the borough and the county, where they run a cabinet system, so the decision-making process is different from the structure we have here, and the requirements for scrutiny are different based on that. The legislation doesn't require us actually to have a scrutiny committee, but the council took a decision back in about 2011, 2012 to continue with scrutiny in the format that we are at now, and also set its terms of reference. So perhaps need to go back.
That's some of the documents to start with, actually,
to revisit that.
That's why you're down on my interview list. So I should see you first, and you can point to me.
That's a really good place to start.
But I just felt that there were perhaps areas that we could do differently. It may be that nothing changes, I don't know, but at least if we look,
absolutely,
then
we can't be accused of not looking.
Yes. And also the other thing that I wanted to look at was engagement of the rest of the councillors, because we get, and you've complained about this, is we get occasional inputs, but you know, your famous case of when Chris Miller was here and nobody came to question him, but then in full council they're sort of complaining about not having a chance to question people.
Remarkable.
So it may be that we need to present scrutiny in a slightly different way or a different format to engage more, or perhaps do something to encourage them more in terms of communication and outreach, basically. So that's where I was coming from.
Can I just take a quick comment from Councillor Brown, George?
I think it is important to bear in mind that the function of scrutiny at county council, borough council, is as a kind of democratic safety net to rein in the cabinet members who otherwise wouldn't be scrutinised sufficiently in terms of the Localism Act.
Because you don't have that strategy stage.
Absolutely, but that doesn't mean that scrutiny here doesn't have an important role to play, and actually I think it's a very worthwhile exercise to take this periodic review of how we do scrutiny and just try and move towards best practice and improve where we can.
So one of the things the borough does, which I was quite interested in, is that they actually in effect write out to the councillors and say, what would you like us to look at? Because at the moment I won't say struggle, but we just pick things that interest us or crop up in a meeting. We don't think, oh, perhaps there's something else that one of the other councillors worries about that we should be looking at.
I mean, I suppose at those year ends, theoretically, if you've got things you want us to have a look at, the door's open, but you're right, maybe there's more to do. I think it's very exciting. Can I make a recommendation actually on this one? You may want to, in terms of your couple of group members, you always speak to Councillor Ritchie as well.
I've got him down.
Oh, you've got it. Yeah, sorry, but that's a good point. But I mean, just because I think tonight he wanted to be here, I think, but he couldn't make it. I know obviously he was here last time. I didn't miss him, so I know it's definitely worth engaging with him.
Yes,
he's
offering to help.
Yeah, that's good.
And Adam's now volunteered. That's a little bit of.
Yeah, and I saw that Bob was there as well, and you say Adam was there, so that's good. But just, and I think it's kind of, let's be political about this for a moment. As the Conservative chair, I don't want people to be able to accuse us of being, just for the administration. And I think by having those strong voices on there, I think that's helpful. And I certainly like. I welcome this actually, because having chaired it for a few years from the last meeting, I think it's good to have a fresh pair of eyes on it as well, looking at it and saying what else can we do. And I'd certainly welcome that, because any of us can get not stuck in a group, but kind of just have a bit of a partnership. That's kind of just how it works. And I think that maybe if within the realms of what we can do, a little bit of a refresher, that'd be good for all of us actually. Yeah.
So I mean that's really it. I mean the rest of the stuff is there. the witnesses, if you like. I mean, obviously you and Tony. I didn't really know who else. I'll talk to some of the councillors.
Councillor Charles is probably quite good as well.
Yeah.
Councillor Charles,
Charles,
yeah, because he was doing it before.
I didn't know who else might be relevant, you know, whether like Chris Miller or something like that.
I think the leader would be a relevant person to.
Events with him.
But I'm quite happy if we meet early on and we can sort of see.
You can steer me in the right direction.
Well, I can suggest where you move.
I meant in the nicest way. Okay, well I'll drop you an email with some dates, and if you let me know when you're around.
Yep. So, are we happy to accept that one and get moving on that one? Great, thank you. And in terms of the first, do you want to give us a verbal interim in November?
What is the top? When are our meetings?
We've got one in November, one in February.
So if I do a verbal in November,
Yeah.
Probably.
That's reasonable.
I might get written. I don't know. It's
If you have a one page, that's great as well.
Yeah.
But
and then finish it in the February one.
finish it
Present the report.
preferably, yeah. Or at least before you finish.
Oh, May. So it's a long time.
Yeah, but we know it goes quick.
Yeah.
Because actually between the November and the February, that goes very quick. And before you know it, it's a month.
Yeah.
But let's say at least a verbal in November.
I've got that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking that on board. And I look forward to that as your last piece of work. And you're definitely stepping down, because you're moving. You moved.
I've moved. Yes.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not allowed to
stand
stand
again. I should move back again.
Yeah. Too late now. I think they've chosen my replacement. Potential replacement.
You might be a councillor in some other place.
I've applied to my
Good. Good. All right. Well, that's that one done. Thank you very much. Good. So agreed today. Verbal November. Completion in Feb. Great. Next one up is Councillor Brown in Oxford.
Yes.
Beginning of the year.
Yeah, and
Fresh start.
absolutely, and it's in front of us, so we know what we're looking at. You may well have seen on your emails, had quite a positive response from across the board actually, which was very, very pleasing to see. As such, what you haven't got on your scoping document is that Councillor Randall will be part of the task panel.
That's good.
As will Councillor Auger, is volunteered
Very
to
good.
provide some assistance.
Good to have Councillor Auger on board.
Yes.
Councillor Randall, we haven't seen much from her for a while on this committee actually, so it'd be quite...
She did express very
Not
keen
surprised
interest in this
particular
which
subject.
Absolutely, she did some very good work on the customer satisfaction survey.
She's got form in this area.
Yeah. Also received some quite in-depth comments from Councillor Ritchie, some of which I'll be able to incorporate into what I'm looking at.
I mean, if you want to get Councillor Ritchie involved as well, I mean, to some extent, having
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
a rep sounding board.
Yes,
Keep him busy.
and he's got a very real passion for public engagement and democratic values. So I think his passion for this would be quite
And I do genuinely.
Yes, and he also circulated
some comments as
very,
well.
very interesting research into open democracy and different ways of practicing local government, which I went through. Which won't form part of this, but certainly I think it just speaks for his passion on the subject. So it's a shame he's not here tonight, actually.
It is actually, yeah. Originally, I was hoping for some extra comments from him as well. I mean, I know we have fun and games in full chamber, but actually, particularly on this committee, I welcome all these voices, since we've got to kind of keep thinking fresh. You know, so.
But ultimately, this is just to have a long, hard look at the way that we're going out to consultation, and whether we can do things better, whether we can speak to more people, whether we can actually engage better with the community. When Councillor Chandler fed back to me and made a very valid point that we can't form policy on public opinion alone. There has to be a strategic direction. That's not what this is about, and I'll make that very clear. This is about making sure that we get in contact with the people who will be directly affected by our policies, making sure that we consider their views properly and ensure that their part in the democratic process is being respected.
Because that often comes up, I think, actually. Well, it feels a bit like a recurring thing.
It's a very much a recurring thing, which is why I've decided to look at this. And I have sat in full council and in strategy and thought that we're using consultation feedback from minute numbers of members of the public, and using those responses as justification for proceeding with the policy.
Sometimes it can be
actually,
perhaps.
I think my personal opinion is that it's an extremely weak base, and that doesn't automatically mean that the method of consultation has to change dramatically in a certain manner, but it means that it warrants us having a look and a proper review and seeing what's done elsewhere. Actually, one of the very good points raised by Councillor Ritchie is that I shouldn't necessarily limit myself to only looking at local government, because local government maybe isn't a shining example of consultation. I know Councillor Guildford can't form part of my task panel because she's a portfolio holder, but I will be communicating with her because I believe she's done some consultation work on behalf of the NHS, so I'll be getting some pointers from her.
Good, thank you.
I also did some initial research just on public consultation generally. It arose that there was a test case, or quite a significant case at the Supreme Court involving the London Borough of Harrogate, I believe it was. That has been incorporated into our consultation methods. We're abiding by findings of that decision. They were quite specific, they were more specific.
So some things to refer to there as well, I saw that too. So, quick, Councillor French.
So I'm just slightly confused, so perhaps you could, are you looking at ways of getting more responses?
Better consultation both in terms of quantity and quality. So examining whether we could be potentially directing our consultation in a more forensic manner, or simply whether there are methods by which we could obtain a great number of responses.
So that was my lead-on question. You're actually looking at the ways that we consult with people and the physical mechanism of actually responding.
That's going to form a key part of it.
Yes,
certainly. Whether we're missing a trick in terms of the way that other people are consulting, that might lead us to have a...
I know everybody's got a computer sort of argument.
Some basic fundamental
whether we're gearing our consultations predominantly through the website, whether we could be utilising social media better. There's so many aspects of it.
Going back to the problem, part of the problem here is that we, perhaps it could be argued, over-rely on the responses and the consultations when we're making decisions in council particularly.
And that's part of the rationale behind objective number 4, examining whether there is consistency in how we use results from a small sample, whether we're equally willing to highlight negative feedback versus positives, because I may be incorrect, but my perception at times has been that there's been a degree of cherry picking of the results that we get. Definitely. I think nodding enthusiastically.
I think Councillor Pritchard queries from those good.
Yeah, I'd go as far as a deliberate obfuscation of results and manipulated statistics to prove policy when you said earlier that policy shouldn't be based on public opinion. It's not always, occasionally.
But you have to bear in mind that people who generally respond to consultations are those with some sort of bugbear, either are for it or against it for some reason. So
if a particular view on it.
If you said, if we did a consultation on council tax, everyone would say it was too high.
Yeah.
But we know we've got to put it up. So actually relying on 90% of people telling us it's too high and should come down, we would go against that and put it up. So you do have to be careful with how you play around with that.
But if you give people options, and those options don't actually address their priorities or their wants or desires,
but there's that, yes.
Then what's the point of doing a consultation? To get your own answer?
So I think it's pretty fair to say we're all setting those minutes and perhaps not entirely comfortable with the presentation.
Sounds great.
Good, and again, perhaps call upon yourself if there's any particular sociological research type angle, etc. Good. Are we happy to accept that?
Yeah.
I think there's probably plenty of detail. In terms of deadlines and timeframes,
I'm going to aim to have it completed by February. I don't see things, situations may develop, but
Well, you've got no elections.
I've got no election. Well, don't speak too soon. Apparently there are no elections due between now and February, so I'm hoping to have this completed by February. I'm certainly having a verbal update in November.
When
Thank you.
if we have it done in February, when does it go to strategy?
Well, it depends really, actually. We can't control that, but Tony, a typical timeline basically comes to the management first to have a view on it and think about it. And then after it's been through that process, then it would go to strategy. So,
Because if I remember rightly with my last one, which I finished in February, I actually got it in January, so that the senior management team could look at it. So when it came to the February meeting, it was agreed, or it had been commented on by the senior manager. So it could go straight to strategy rather than go to senior management.
I think, according to the flow diagram, they always come through senior management.
Yeah,
I don't know if
but I'm
somebody-
saying we did it before the February meeting.
Oh well, get it wrapped up on the November meeting if you want. We can't do any.
I finished it at the very beginning of January.
Yeah.
It went to senior management. This was the rural one, I think. Then it came back to us with their comments on it, so that when it left us, it had already gone through a bit of it, and we were able to get it straight to strategy.
Oh, I think that's a silly point. I think, but it only officially goes for us as a finished document once we've recommended it from here. So even though you get some commentary from it, from that particular version, yeah, it doesn't necessarily go to that. But I mean, the only way to control, I remember having this conversation with Councillor Randall sometimes, basically is to get it in earlier so we have more time. I mean, do you want to see it before?
I will attempt to get it in just after Christmas so that it can go to management for comment.
Yeah. Well, in a way, I suppose if you give the manager more time to reflect on it, that would be helpful, get more construction. But I guess when you read it, I mean, you always give it proper due consideration, but if I could put myself in your shoes a minute, I'd look at it and go, that's the comments I'm looking at with a kind of reality lens on. Make sure it's sensible and sane. But actually, I'm not going to do any further work on it until it's come through this committee. I don't know if that's how you do it, that's my mindset, how to approach it.
We did it differently.
Yeah.
Well,
Tony?
if I can, Jim. Yeah, I mean, what we asked to see the reports before they come in, so as a task panel, you would certainly draft your report.
Yeah.
We'd have a look at that before it comes in, just, I mean, to sense check it as much as anything, see if there are any factual issues. It would then come to S&I committee, and it's only when the recommendations are agreed at this committee, then it comes back and then it's for the recommendations then to be considered in more depth and reported through to strategy group.
Right.
So in terms of timing, I mean, I haven't even got a committee on there. So we'd be looking at is the 6th of February, is the February S&I committee day, and there's a strategy group on the 8th of February, so you wouldn't achieve that. So that means it then goes into the next cycle, because the February council meeting is at that cycle's council meeting is at the end of February. So you'd then be looking for a strategy group meeting which would feed then into the May council. So it could go to March, either March or April strategy group, having been recommendations gone through.
Which is fine. I mean, the only way around that is to finish it before November, I guess.
It's unlikely. If it does, it does.
If it does, it does. But yeah, and actually, this is quite a gap between this one and the next one. That's really because of Christmas, etc.
Yeah.
And actually, knowing that you're not going to go so much work over Christmas, generally people don't, do they? Life takes over. Okay, good. So that's yours, Councillor Frenchman, and yours, Councillor Frank. Okay, we both come back at the same time. Good. And thank you for those. Next one is over to you, Tony, actually. That is implementation activity. This one I think is quite straightforward, actually, Tony, isn't it?
Yes, Chairman, I think there's 3 action plans here to report on, starting with page 17 in the papers. So the first one relates to the economic role strategy in assignment 10. There's no change in terms of the RAG status on this. What is still to be done is some of the work around the looking at the village facilities as rural business hubs. So that work is ongoing, so we're not claiming to sign up on that yet.
Good, and that means we won't even look at that for at least 1 year, because it's 1 year after the full implementation.
Yep.
The next one is...
This one is... Yes, sorry, assignment 16, which is customer service plan, and that was time to be reviewed in April 18. So the community team updated 15th of August. It's just an update of the comment then, but this is reliant on changes to processes with the general data protection regulations, so we're ongoing with that.
And finally, assignment 17, we'll take any questions.
Yeah, that's the commercial property, and again, we've still 2 actions there which are ongoing. So the consideration to liaison with owners and managers, and action 3, potential for conversion of suitable vacant commercial properties. So still ongoing work on both of those with the business team.
Thank you.
Can I just make, sorry Chair, on that item 3 about Weedon Depot, I noticed there are some planning applications in for next week for the change of use and the retrospective change of use of some of the units for commercial use.
That's good, thank you for knowing that. Tony, was that all for you?
Yeah, that's it. Ongoing, but there's no change to RAG status for those 3 action plans.
Thank you, Tony. And Councillor Pritchard, any comments on that one?
No, that's great. Thank you for that review, especially Mike.
Okay, thank you. Any final comments on any of those?
No.
No, happy, both of you?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So, Weedon. Nothing to add on that one, Councillor Brown?
No, not at this stage. No, I just think that it's very positive that hopefully we're going to see some regeneration of the depot. It's of undoubted historical value, but if it's not being used and looked after, then it's going to fall into disrepair. So money, and if it will preserve it.
It goes back to my earlier point, really, about putting, how do you put electric vehicle capacity in new houses and stuff, charging. So I don't know, it was 20 years' time, but I actually bought a house in Weedon 17 years ago, and we were talking about the development there and how it's going to be a part of the scheme. Here we are now, still waiting. Right, next one is 1 year post-implement. This is a great agenda item actually. 1 year post-implementation activity reviews. There are no 1 year post-implementation activity reviews. Actually, we'll keep it there because it's still a standing item. And then number 8, to resolve that portfolio holder, Councillor Gilford. Now, on this one, she was invited for today, but she couldn't make it. They had various issues. But I also noted that the comments from the previous meeting about how we set those up. So, 2 things here really. Number 1 is, do we still want to invite her? And let's explore the background. So it's around about all of the issues that we commonly see, obviously waste, etc., landscaping. But also because of where we are in the development of the contract at the moment, it kind of gives us a very good opportunity at this stage for us to talk to her about that.
She also looked after the electric car initiative. Is that an environmental thing as well?
Yes, we could. And in a way, picking up on one of those points before, you said don't go to do a presentation but have questions. Perhaps the best way to do it is say bring a presentation about your area and the key indicators, and we'll get some questions to you as well. And that way you get the best of both worlds, because it's still good to give them some, because sometimes I found that if we can be organised to get advanced questions, that's helpful. But actually seeing how she presents will give us some things perhaps that we haven't even thought about. So we should kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But first of all, are we happy to continue with Councillor Guildford at the next one?
Yeah, the only alternative was Wayne.
Councillor Howard. So which one's the kind of strongest
I
candidate?
think she is, but he
Yeah.
could come to the next one.
You could, well, I'm going to talk about the next one in a second, actually, because we have a bit of an update potentially on which I'd like to share. So, happy with Councillor Guildford? Go with that plan?
Yes.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of a call out. So, what I'll do is I'll say, does anybody have any specific questions they'd like us to raise in scrutiny? And actually, I'll open that to you as well. And I'll collate those, and I can send them to her beforehand. But she can also do a presentation on it based on those, plus something else. Does that work for you?
Yes.
What I'd like to do is put a relatively short deadline up by the end of September. So if we're going to know out in the next sort of week maximum, say these are the questions, please send them to me, and we'll take you from there. Happy with that?
Yeah, that sounds good. The only thing is, in terms of the feedback to those individuals' questions that you've collated, the only way currently that happens is embedded within the minutes
Yeah.
of this committee.
Yeah.
Do you think you're happy for that? If they're interested in the questions that are answered, that they go and search out, or do you want a facilitated response sent out? Or?
I think the reason for wanting to pull those in by the end of September means they have time to prepare their answers properly. And I think she could deliver that in the session. And I suppose what you're asking is, how do we best capture those questions or answered?
Yeah, the
How do we
answers
best
to
disseminate the answers?
How do we best disseminate the answers?
questions.
Well, I suppose the most obvious way is basically, if she can prepare, or she will be able to, in her presentation before the meeting, then it'll go in the agenda pack. So we can actually include a presentation in it.
But I mean, if I don't know, Councillor Orby sends you a question,
Yeah.
should you not respond to with the answer to his question?
Well, I don't know the answer to his question.
No,
what I'll
once
say is,
we've had
well,
it.
that's that, but well, my role can be very simple. I will collate the questions, I'll put a call out, and then write to her and say, these are the questions. And then she can respond to them in the presentation. And then the presentation can either be, she can either prepare it beforehand so it's in the pack, or it'll be in the pack for afterwards for the next one, perhaps. What I don't want to do is I don't want a parallel universe here.
No, but perhaps then the pack or the answers should be sent personally from the scrutiny committee to the questioners. I know they can go on the website and find it.
Well, we go on to the meeting.
Yeah.
Well, it comes to a meeting, exactly. Yeah, I don't want to get into a whole load of personal correspondence. I say, this is your question, you pose it as councillor, it'll be answered in this session. Either she'll put that in the preparation beforehand, or she'll answer in the session.
Yeah, so as incentivising that, you could respond after your collation. Councillor Orby would decided to ask a question to Councillor Gifford on this time. It'd be in your interest to come along and attend the meeting to hear your response. Would you be, or is that too much communication again?
No, I don't think it's necessary. What I'll do is, what I can do is collect the questions, and then I'll send them to her and copy everybody back in. That'll be a simple way. These are the questions. Thank you very much, everybody, for your questions. Here's what she's going to be presenting back at the meeting. Job done. You happy with that?
Yeah.
Great. Lovely. Okay, that's agreed then. So I'll send the questions out and collect them that way. Good. Any comments to her? Seems pretty well. Yeah, pretty straightforward. In fact, I've got an idea. Could Philippa help coordinate those adversities? Yeah.
She's not in this week.
Not this week, that's okay.
She's back then.
Yeah, I might just start and get her to copy me and she can help collect. I mean, how hard's it going to be? If we get like 10 questions per councillor, it's going to get a bit time consuming, but
I guess
actually
you get
councillor
2 or 3.
But sometimes you'll get no responses at all. Consultation. Yeah. Okay. So
Chairman, just on that, you could send it out and ask the responses to be copied back into Philippa.
Absolutely.
Do it that way.
Yeah. Good. That's a good way of involving her actually. The committee, isn't it? Good. So see responses. Now, finally, with respect to the next meeting, we have the opportunity. In fact, it's been aligned in the background for me to speak about this meeting. But Tony, we've got SEMLA, a representative from SEMLA. You've been in touch with me on our behalf. So would you like to give us a quick update on that?
I haven't personally, Chairman. They've been approached, or we as a member of SEMLA, council of SEMLA, have been invited along with other councils to invite a representative of CENLAB as part of the scrutiny process. So it was a general invitation, it came out. In discussion with the chairman, we felt it's something that we might want to take on board. So we have gone back to CENLAB and made an expression of interest with an invitation to the February committee for them to do a presentation to this committee of CENLAB's work and what they're doing for Daventry district, and that's where it is at the moment.
That's where it is at the moment. We haven't made any further action. We wanted to secure the date with it, which has been done by the management, and they want to kind of furnish that. So basically, we haven't got this formally on the agenda. Does that want to get kind of initial feedback on that so we can go and seal it off with them?
I met them because I did it under my rural doodah. I think that is too important just for scrutiny. I think it should be a members' development evening.
Well, it's interesting actually because in the invitation that came to us, it was specifically about scrutiny.
But going back to what I'm doing, our scrutiny is different to other people's scrutiny.
That's a good point actually. That's a good point.
I think they were looking more at what the other people's scrutiny methods were.
Well, that's a really interesting point actually, because we're not unique, are we, in terms of the way we're
We are locally.
Yeah, locally, yeah.
And
is that for all of the councils locally, or are we different to all?
I don't know, that's them all yet.
I don't know about the councils in the east of the county, but locally we're the only council that runs a committee system.
In Northamptonshire?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about other counties.
No, I don't know
say
about other counties, but certainly South Northants and NBC have a cabinet system, the rest is the county.
And Harbour is a cabinet system as well.
Okay,
so we're surrounded by it.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is they are more used to dealing with that
different kinds of scrutiny.
But if they're doing a presentation on their work, then I would have thought it's more generally interesting for everybody.
Well, this goes back to your earlier point, we can open it to everybody. We're only sitting here with a smaller group, sometimes you have more people who say this is happening. By the way, I have communicated this to Councillor Miller, for courtesy. But I mean, we could basically, I suppose it's the tone, isn't it, that you take actually is quite important to be
worth being optimistic and moving the meeting to the main council chamber. I know we did the same when Councillor Shaw spoke at.
Actually, could have done Yeah, Tony, can we do that, please? Can we organise it for a different venue? And actually, but I think you're right, Barry. But I think Councillor Frenchman, sorry, my manners. We could just open it up to the whole. But actually, again, same thing. Tell us any questions you would like to have raised. We'll do the same process we're adopting this one. And again, it's a way of engaging all of the members and then say please come. But at this point, it's very, very much basically put the date in, we've asked the pencil it in, and have just a very quick chat. So it's not official, but I suppose it would be. We can just say now we're going to do it, basically, can't we? We don't have to resolve for a formal agenda item like these, or we could put it on the agenda item for November to formally resolve to invite them. We've never been invited.
Yeah, I think generally it's about confirming the expression of interest.
Yeah.
We have approached them. I'm not sure we've heard back.
Right, okay. For some reason, I thought Philip or yourself had said we can heard back and they can do it.
It may be that Philippa has, and I've not caught up with that. That's quite possible.
Yeah.
And again, if a date is confirmed, then we could enter some sort of dialogue and tailor something to suit our needs and something that they're able to do. Yeah. And again, once that's shaped, then you'll communicate that more.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've got the good thing is we've got plenty of time, but we wanted to kind of nail the date first, obviously, because we do.
Make another point. Our meetings are usually quite detailed and relatively long compared to some meetings. If we're going to have a major presentation in the main council chamber with possibly a few councillors there, that could go on for a very long time in its own right.
Yes, it could.
Which would not leave us time to do what we wanted to do afterwards without bringing our sleeping bags.
Yeah.
Could we move things round a little and perhaps have our nuts and bolts meeting first and have the presentation, I don't know, like 7:30 or something like that? It's just an idea. because that'll give us an hour and whatever to get through what we might need to get through, because we won't have time. I mean, I might be wrong, we might have, you know.
Either way, we're time limited, aren't we?
We're time limited. I think I was just wondering if it's better to flip it, because actually you can have a time limit on the same thing.
Yeah, but you can't, the members will hang around, won't they? They'll chat and even when the presentation's over.
Well, they're welcome to stay, or they're welcome, but you know, we'll just say be quiet and contribute. But I know what you mean, it might mean the next bit's longer. But I don't think they're going to want to stay all night, are they? That's probably reality.
Well, I don't know how long the presentation, I mean, you can find that out.
We could define all that.
Yeah.
At the moment, all we've really worked on until this meeting is simply to say, could you fix that date for us? And we'll discuss it more here about, you know, the subsequent meetings. But yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to that. I think the con is people come in, they might come in late because it's February as well. It's kind of middle of winter, really, isn't it? Mm. So people might not want to come back sort of 7:30 or 8 to join the meeting. So it might be better to have that, get that done in about 2 hours and then finish up with our business. We pretty much know what's going to be on the agenda anyway, don't we, from here on, particularly your projects. So, but I think we'll time limit it, and that's the best way to do it.
Or perhaps you limit the other agenda for that time.
We could remove the corporate part.
Yeah.
That's one way of running through it a bit quicker. Because that we do get quite wrapped up in that quite rightly as well. So we could say February we won't have that agenda item. Is that good compromise? Yeah. So limit the time.
And if obviously as chair, if you're mindful of the time, because I guess the seminar people don't want to go on forever.
No. Yeah. I'm always mindful of the time. Yeah. You could quite frankly rattle through these things quicker, but it's good to have a good discussion about this.
Yes, it is.
To do justice. Right. Okay. Limit time, similar, and basically no corporate group. Okay. That's the meeting after next, but it's good to have that on the record. Good. Happy with that? Yes. Right, good. Thank you for your contribution. And finally then, we've got the last item, which is urgent business. No urgent business, is it? Good. Well, thank you, Jolie, for coming. Thanks, Tony, as always. And that's not bad going, is it? 10 to 9 on my agenda. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next time.